Okay, now don't be mad.
You're listening to the RPM Podcast.
It's not good.
Okay, here we are again, episode 166 of the RPM Podcast. It is March 9th at 2020. Once again, 7:30 p.m. That's 2 weeks in a row, man. We're starting off pretty good here. I'm Scott Riggleman in Manchester, New Jersey. My brother Tim Riggleman, season pass holder at North Wilkesboro Speedway, is up in Farmingdale, New Jersey. Tim, how are you?
Good. I got those passes cheap.
I bet you did. Then we got Joshua Matthews down there in Waretown, New Jersey. He's the producer of the show and sole survivor of the original cast. Josh, how are you doing?
Good. I was going to get Tim a ride on lawnmower too. I figured if he mows the grass at North Wilkesboro, and maybe sprays a little bit of Roundup, then everything goes to him for free.
I tell you what, there's not many jobs in this world my brother would like to have, but that'd be one of them. My brother would relocate his whole life to get that job at North Wilkesboro, being the caretaker down there that keeps the grass cut. And what else do you think that guy does down there, Tim? You think that's about it? Just chases people off?
No, he doesn't chase them off. He welcomes them in. He did it with us, my family.
Yeah, but I'm sure if there's like a kid on a quad or something like that, he's got to shoo them away. You know what I'm saying? Something like that.
Damn kids. It's those darn millennials.
Yeah, I tell you what, that would be a dream job, taking care of a racetrack like that. I mean, it'd be better if it had a few races a year. It'd even be a better job to be taking care of a racetrack like that.
I was talking about that about that the Fun Factory that those guys are about. They were looking for somebody to do that. They actually found somebody. But that would have been perfect. Yeah.
Just not that anybody's actually asking, but just putting it out there. I think my dream job would be the guy that mows the grass on the Parkway median.
Not me, man.
I mean,
the chance you're gonna get waffled out there, that's for sure.
Maybe. But otherwise, I think it's a mindless enough job to kind of just keep going and mowing the grass, but you're also getting paid for it, and at least you should have easy access to get back on the Parkway to get home. Because I'm only a couple minutes. I mean,
my friend said he missed his opportunity. He said his dream job would have been the guy that bulldozed the woods to make Route 95 in Maine. He said basically he just sat on a big bulldozer with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and they said just go straight north, and that's it. He just bulldozed everything over and went straight north. He said he would love that job.
I thought Clint Walker got that job with Killdozer.
That show's out now. It's on Amazon Prime. I think Nancy might have Amazon Prime. I want to watch that show.
I was referring to there's an old movie called Killdozer starring Clint Walker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the one out now? There's Killdozer out now about that guy that did that.
That was that guy that got
right?
screwed by the businesses and everything in town. And yeah.
Oh, so there was a regular movie called Killdozer?
Yeah, like a theatrical,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Maybe that's where this guy got this name from, or that's just what they called it, But yeah, I want to watch that documentary about that guy that got mad at his town. It was over like a land dispute.
Well, it was like a driveway
permits.
access to his, what was it, a muffler shop or something I think he had?
Yeah, he had a muffler shop. But then I was hearing there was more to the story that the concrete plant across the street offered to buy the place, and they said, well, give us a price. And he said, he only paid $42,000 for the lot and the building that his muffler shop was in. And he gave him a price of $250,000. Well, they agreed on it. And then when they went to go buy it, he said, no, I want $375,000. And then he was up to like $2 million. So, I mean, there's two sides of that story, like just like anything else, And then in the end, they just changed the zoning where the concrete plant could just do anything they wanted, and it pretty much ran his muffler shop out of business because it just made it a real dirty part of town with the dust and all that stuff, and it kind of just killed his business. No one was going over that way, and he got mad. And he built that bulldozer with all the steel plate on it and gun ports and all that stuff, and he drove through town just wrecking everything,
Yeah. Well, he took out houses, cars, buildings, everything. The movie I'm talking about was from 1974.
Oh, wow.
Listed as a horror / sci-fi. I'll share that on the podcast page because, why not? That's That's my
Was it
rec-
a similar story?
A small construction crew on an island is terrorized when a spirit-like being takes over a large bulldozer and goes on a killing rampage. I think it's more. What was that movie with the trucks? That kind of.
Joyride?
Well, the ones where they kind of got their own, their mind of their own. It had that big green clown face on the front
Yeah,
of one of them.
wasn't that like? No, that wasn't Joyride, was it?
I thought Joyride was a mid 2000s horror
Yeah.
movie. But yeah, we'll think of it. It'll come to us sometime middle of the show.
All right. On to the racing. I guess we could call it 3 NASCAR series now because ARCA is part of NASCAR now. There was 3 NASCAR series racing down in Phoenix, Arizona. It was the ARCA cars, the Xfinity cars, and the Cup cars. Friday night was the ARCA race. We're going to start with that. I did watch it. It was pretty cool watching an ARCA race on Friday night. I did make a mistake last week. I did tell you guys it was going to be on Track Pass. It was not on Track Pass. It was on FS1. It was on live. So whenever it's on FS1 live, you just watch it on TV. You don't have to go through the Track Pass thing because Track Pass is through NBC Sports. So obviously if the Fox Sports has it on, then you just watch it through that. Pretty good race. Josh, can you see how many cars they had? I know they had over 20. I mean, it's not setting the world on fire, but it's not as bad as it was getting last year.
Right. Let me see here. They had 24 cars listed.
24 cars, so that's not horrible. It's a decent count. I mean, we're still far away from the 30 to 35 or 40 cars the ARCA used to get, but there is a little bit of an increase.
Or is it you also have to divide it up among, was it the 4 different ARCA series?
Yeah, but this was their main series. This was the big series where they run the bigger tracks. And they did explain that a little bit more during the broadcast. Another reason why they kept it where there's still an ARCA East, the K&N East turned into ARCA East and the K&N West turned into K&N West, rather than geographically. The other reason they did that is because there's 15, 16-year-old kids running in the K&N East and West, and they're not old enough to run on the big track. So if they fully combine the schedules, then those kids couldn't race for a championship because they're too young to run on the big tracks. So they kept the short track program separate, so these kids still have a chance to run for a championship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then if there is guys that race the big track series, older guy like me maybe that could do that, and they can still run the short tracks too and still race for championships there. But this was the big track ARCA series, just like the old ARCA series was. So that was the points for that one. I think it's called the Sioux Chief ARCA series.
Yes.
The one cool story that came up on Facebook before the race started was there's this guy called Tim Richmond. He is named after the Tim Richmond that used to race. His parents were a big Tim Richmond fan. Their last name was Richmond, so they named their kid Tim. He's racing in the ARCA series now, and he's one of those guys that shows up at every race. And he shows up at the short track races, the ARCA East, ARCA West, and the big track races. He's actually 7th in points. And when I say,
I'm sorry, Scott, do any of those series race at Richmond?
I don't know. I don't think so. That'd be pretty cool though that they did. But he's a very, very underfunded team, and even though he doesn't really finish that well, he's 7th in points because he makes it to all the races. So he hauled out to Phoenix, Arizona, and when he showed up with an open trailer and a van. And I'm not talking about a nice open trailer and a van either. It looks like something that came off of Josh's farm over there on Todd Road. I mean. The van was basically like an old one of those custom vans, like the custom coach vans,
Yeah.
But it's like they ripped the seats out of it, but still had like the rugs on the wall and the TV and the ceiling and all that stuff, and threw their parts and tools in it. And then
well, if it's a rockin'.
Yeah, and then they were towing an open trailer, and I tell you what, my open trailer is from 1994, and it was in better shape than that open trailer. At least I have a box and tire racks and stuff like that on mine. His was just like one of those flat open car trailers with like the wood boards in the middle, and the fenders were like, it looks like he ran the car over the fenders a couple of times because the fenders were like barely hanging on. And then
we've all had those nights.
JC Duvall, who races 4-cylinders over Wall Stadium, he even like noticed in the picture that the guy was using like Harbor Freight jack stands and a jack, So he's really on a budget. I tell you what, though, it looked like he debuted a newer car, though, because he finally has the updated composite body car. He's been running the old steel bodied car. And I tell you what, the car itself actually looked pretty nice. Unfortunately, he did spin out going through the corners and it looked pretty much like all by himself, and he did back it into the wall. So he had a little bit of a bad run out there. I hope the car isn't that bad, because I know it's probably his only car for the super speedways and the bigger tracks over a mile. So I hope the car was repairable and he can continue. Next race.
His official reason for retiring from the race was handling, and his sponsor is greatrailing.com, which I kind of need to look up now that I'm just curious.
You know what? That's weird that you say that, greatrailing.com, because when I raced in the Arch Truck Series, there was a guy in North Jersey, and he was sponsored by greatrailing.com.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's like a franchise thing or
railing, decking, and fencing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they put in just handrails for things.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a national company, and there might be a branch out of New Jersey. That this guy was sponsored by that race with me in the Arch Trucks, and he did move up to like that Super Cup Series for a little while, and now I see that name showing up again. That Great Rails.
Here it is. It's 1086 North Black Horse Pike in Williamstown, New Jersey. That's the official location for greatrailing.com.
Oh wow! So it is a New Jersey-based company.
Mm-hmm. I learned something new today.
So he's somebody I keep an eye on, because I know he's a low budget guy and he's trying to run the whole thing, and he's doing it. He's doing it like a short track racer.
And where is he based out of himself?
I don't know. I think he drives for Wayne Peterson, and Wayne Peterson I think is out of like Tennessee or something like that. Wayne Peterson is that guy that John drove for with the truck at Flemington.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Okay. All right. So moving along from that, what else? Anything important in that race that you wanted to bring up?
The end of the race was a little confusing. Another thing I just want to say about Tim Richmond, I'm keeping an eye on him, because the next race for ARCA is at Pensacola at the Five Flags Speedway, and I want to see if he makes it to that race. If they can get the car repaired enough, or he might bring out one of his older style short track cars for that race. So it's something I want to keep an eye on. And that race is being broadcasted on that Track Pass, so that's this weekend. The end of that race was weird. I felt bad for Joe Gibbs's grandson. He led like that whole race, and he was smoking the field, and they pitted late, but he had plenty of laps to get back up there. He was like 8th or 9th, and when they were going back green, it was going to be like 8 laps to go on a 1 mile track. He was just going to blow by those guys, But what happened was they were all fighting over where to start, just like we see at Wall Stadium everywhere, where everybody like rides around next to each other and won't get into their spot and this, that, and the other thing. Well, it took them 4 or 5 laps to get that all straightened out. And by the time they got it straightened out, it was just a green-white checkered. And the Gibbs kid, he got up to second, but he just ran out of time, and it wasn't his fault. They had it playing perfect where he would have had 8 laps left, and ARCA and the other drivers weren't getting in line and lost laps. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like where they should have just red flagged it, stopped them, and put them in the right spot, and not let the laps click away like that.
Sometimes they really need to do that. I show him finishing 3rd, by the way, behind Michael Self. But I know what you mean, especially even if it's something where just a radio is broken and it's truly innocent.
The thing was, ARCA was yelling at these drivers to get in their spots, or they were going to be black flagged and not counted, and they weren't doing it. There was one time they were like 5 wide, all fighting for the same spot, and it's because they had that modified pit thing where you don't lose your spot in the pits, but they have some type of system. If you take 4 tires, then you got to be behind the guys that only took 2 tires, because naturally if it would have been live pit stops, you would have lost the spot because you took more tires. And that's why the Gibbs kid was behind them, because he took 4 tires. And there was people thinking because they took 4 tires. You know, they hit it when they were second and took 4 tires. They should have been second. And their ARCA was trying to explain to them, no, because these guys only took 2, so they hopscotch over you. You know, it's something new they're doing, a new way of pitting, and it got real confusing. It really did screw the Gibbs kid out of a win.
If you're counting more than 3, these rednecks are going to get confused.
They should have stopped the field like they do in the short tracks and sent a guy like John Russell down, you know, to point to his butt and say, you go here and you go here. You know what I'm saying? Because by them clicking those laps away, it can't. And really, it wasn't even a green-white checkered finish. It was a green checkered. Like they threw the green and the white flag at the same time. So you literally had 1 lap, you know. It was kind of a bad ending to a pretty good race, and it was a little disappointing to see that. But like you said, it's all new, you know. So they're working on that. And the Gibbs kid was, you know, he's only like 18 years old or 17 years old, something like that. And he was visibly upset after the race that, you know, that happened to him. I'm sure he's got more wins coming. You know, he's got a long racing career ahead of him and good equipment, so it'll be forgotten about soon. Another one, Haley Deegan had another good run. She ran about 7th, 8th the whole race right in that area. I think she ended up 5th, though. She had a very good finish. A couple cars did wreck in the end.
7th, actually.
She did finish up. That's about where she ran the whole race, too, around 7th or 8th. You know what I'm saying?
And that's fine, and that's good for learning. Like, if the problem is you have all these people that are like, oh my God, she's a freaking goddess. She's gonna win everything. Like, no, let her learn. This is good.
Yeah.
That's a respectable finish.
Mm-hmm.
And great. And as long as she didn't get into any trouble or wreck anybody, then great, good, and let them all, you know what I'm saying. Ooh,
that was pretty cool. I think that guy that won, I think that was a Billy Venturini car. The father wasn't there, so there was no kissing going on in Victory Lane, so that was a good thing.
I was just gonna ask.
But the son was there, and he doesn't do the kiss thing in Victory Lane. He's also the owner of the team, so that was pretty good. But it was good seeing that.
I have a feeling that I know you talk about how much you hate it, but it seems almost like you wait and specifically seek out that moment in Victory Lane.
I always say, damn, that was a Venturini car to win. Now we got to see these 2 kiss in Victory Lane. You know what I'm saying? But it didn't happen this week. I like seeing the Venturi team win because they're like the original team from the ARCA series. They kind of made a career out of that series. You know, the father raced it, the son raced it, and now they're owners, and they have, you know, they're doing the whole thing with these kids coming up through, and they're running their cars. And they're not a super funded team. They are a smaller team than, say, like the Gibbs car. So I do like seeing that the Venturinis win over the Gibbses, you know.
Is there a relation to Wendy Venturini?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wendy Venturini is the daughter, and Billy Venturini is Wendy's brother, and then Bill Venturini is the father. Yeah.
Okay.
Wendy Venturini is from that family, yes. That's what I mean. They're all in with racing. The whole family works in racing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just didn't know specifics. It kind of like the whole when Brennan didn't understand who was the brother or the uncle for
the Hirschmans?
Yeah.
He thought Winston was Matt's father. It's his brother. All right. So you want to do the top 10? The RPM podcast top 10 for the ARCA series?
Absolutely. So Chandler Smith gets the win, followed by Michael Self, Ty Gibbs, Tanner Gray, Zane Smith, Nick Sanchez, Haley Deegan, Chase Cabre, Lawless Allen. Now that's a cool name. And Gio Selzy.
Gio Selzy had a rough night. He was in a couple of wrecks. Gio Selzy, his father's Gary Selzy from the drag racing world.
Just going to ask that. Yep.
There was 2. I think there was 2 drag racers in that race, and I don't want to be wrong, but they said one of them was a championship. So I don't know if Gary Selzy's kid won a championship in drag race and then he moved over to circle track racing or not. But yeah, he's definitely leaving the drag racing world to try pursue a career in circle track racing, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that moves us over to the Xfinity race. That was on Saturday afternoon. I did get to watch a little bit of that, but I was in the garage working on my race car, so I would look at it every once in a while, pay attention to it, and then get back to what I was working on. How do you guys feel about the racing out of Arizona with that stuff cutting through the infield and stuff like that?
It always looks weird, especially on the restarts when they're like 7 wide. So it's kind of neat. Just if nothing else, it's different. Mm-hmm. And that makes it kind of exciting. And we did see at different points that actually created as they try to merge back together. It caused some incidents and some interesting racing. So I'm not against it. I think it's kind of crazy and a little bit weird, and it's good to change it up.
What makes it even look weird, like, Daytona wasn't too long ago, and if you're like 1 inch under that yellow line, you get penalized and black flagged, and here it's just like a totally different thing. Yeah, what line? You're like cutting through the infield. You're practically hitting the motorhomes in the infield, you know what I'm saying? And it's totally fine. It did bother me at first, but by then, the end of the weekend, it didn't bother me, and I'll tell you why. Here's why it didn't bother me. At first, I thought it was a big advantage by cutting through the infield, and it's almost like cheating because you're leaving the race course and you're cutting through. Because by the end of the race, they were getting lower and lower. And like I said, they were almost hitting the inside wall and fence that separates the campers from the racetrack. You know what I'm saying? But then I listened to Jeff Green, who drove the 93 car for Ryan Sieg Motorsports. And he was on I did a tow early Saturday morning, and I was listening to Pat Patterson on Sirius XM radio, and he had Jeff Green on. It was like 9:30 in the morning. And Jeff Green explained it as it does work. It does make the racing more exciting and the track wider. He said, but when you do that, it comes at a risk because if you notice, the cars bottom out real bad, and there's a chance of tearing the car up. I mean, you can fatigue your springs, you can rip your sway bar off, you can rip your side skirts off, you break a sway bar or something like that. So it does come with a risk. And then another, he said, if you paid attention to qualifying for the Cup cars, not one car cut through the infield to try to make a better lap, a faster lap. So that proves that if you're by yourself and you're racing, the fastest way around that racetrack is to stay on the racetrack.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely a short-term gain. But if you can go down and then cut up in front of somebody, and then they now have to work around you, you may have a slower lap overall, but they're still behind you, and they have to work around you, even going through the next turn.
All right. So by the time I listened to that interview, I said, okay, all right, so fine, let them cut through the infield. It's not the fastest way around the track, and you have a risk of tearing your car up. So, it's a risk versus reward. So then I was a little bit better with that type of racing. It was an interesting race. I'm very surprising. Kyle Busch was in that race, and he did not win. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't even the fastest car out there. So that was very, very surprising that he did not win that race. It was a good race. It was exciting. It was fun to watch. Unfortunately, Daniel Hemrick's career is still spiraling southward. It's almost like he's trying too hard. He's got like a 21 race deal with JR Motorsports, and it's off to a pretty rocky start. And he did wreck again this week, and it was kind of his fault. He kind of put himself in a bad situation, in a bad spot, and lost control of the car. And he was very down on himself too. So I'm keeping an eye on what's going to happen there. I think Daniel just needs to take a deep breath and relax and let his talents do the work instead of trying to force stuff. It's almost like since he lost that Cup ride, and he only has a short schedule with JR Motorsports, he's like really trying to push the issue to get a win. And I think he just needs to take a step back and relax and let the finishes come to him instead of him forcing the issue.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I'm trying to think what else. Anything else that stood out from that race? Like you mentioned, Kyle Busch. Yeah, I just think he had an off day for whatever reason, which is.
He said the car was loose. The car was just loose all day, and they couldn't get it and tightened up. He had some pretty funny conversations with his crew chief, because the one time the crew chief said, "We'll make an adjustment in the car." It's like, what do you suggest? I'll do anything you want, and nothing was really working. They were trying to put front brake in the car and stuff like that, but the car was loose coming off, so front brake wasn't helping it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You want to hit us with the top 10 for that?
Yeah. So Jones gets the win, followed by Harrison Burton, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Justin Haley, Chase Briscoe, Noah Gragson, Austin Cindric, Ross Chastain, and Riley Herbst.
I mean, here we are saying Kyle Busch ran like crap, but meanwhile he finished his third. So I mean, anybody will take that. He still had a good run. But
where did Joe Graf finish?
I'm glad you brought that up, Tim. Show us where Joe Graf finished. I got something to say.
31st. He finished behind Daniel Hemrick.
Yeah. Joe Graf's another one that's having a tough year, and I tell you what, a lot of it's not his fault. And this race in particular was not his fault. His team car got dumped, and when he slid down the track, he slid right in front of Joe Graf, and Joe Graf had nowhere to go, and Joe blasted him. So it was just one of those things where there was a wreck in front of him, and he had nowhere to go, and he wrecked pretty hard, So he's another one that's just a little bit off to a new start, and it was a shame because I think he drives for Bobby Dotter's Green Light Racing. And they're not a super funded team. They're like a middle of the road type team, and they had both cars destroyed in the same wreck. It's always a double-edged sword when you see two team cars wreck each other. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
yeah.
It hurts that much more.
Yeah, it's that much more because now you get two total race cars instead of one, and then you might have two drivers that aren't happy with each other with the situation that happened. So that was a pretty rough hit. The 07 and the 08 did get in the same wreck together. But Harrison Burton finished second, and Harrison Burton backs up his win from last week. So, I mean, here's Harrison Burton, who couldn't get a win in the Truck Series. He's got a first and a second in the last two races in the Xfinity Series. So he's running very well with that Joe Gibbs team, and he's proven that he deserves to be there.
If they had 10 more laps, do you think Burton would have got him?
I don't know because that guy was pretty fast, and he was fast last week as well,
Okay.
He might have though. I didn't really notice because I was in the garage. Did you watch the race, Josh?
I watched the end of it. I didn't get to watch.
Did they have the Kim Cam going?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice either. So I'm thinking they didn't have the camera on Kim Burton this week.
Maybe because we talked about it last week.
Because everybody was wanting to see it. Now they're not going to show it. All right, so that moves us over to the Cup Series. This is a good little test for the Cup Series here at Phoenix because this is where the championship is going to be decided at the end of the year. I liked it. I thought it was a good race. I worked on my race car at about 3 o'clock. Then I came inside and sat on the couch with Nancy and we watched the Cup race. I did take a little nap in the middle of it because I was just tired because we went out the night before. We spent the night at the ARC hanging out with friends there. And then by the time we got home and with the losing 1 hour of sleep and then being back out in the garage at like 9:30 in the morning, I only had a few hours sleep. So I did take a little bit of a nap in the middle of it, but I did watch the beginning and the end of the race. And the racing I did see was very good.
Yeah, I agree. The restarts were pretty exciting. I mean, there were a couple times we got strung out a little bit, but there was plenty of battles going on throughout the field, it seemed. I mean,
and it seemed like all three manufacturers had fast race cars. There was fast Toyotas, there was fast Fords, and there was fast Chevys.
Well, I mean, just looking at the results, you have Ford, Toyota, Chevrolet, Ford.
That's what I mean. There was a good mix. I think NASCAR's finally getting what they want with this short track program where all three manufacturers are very even, very racy. Unfortunately, Martin Truex's bad luck continues. He did have to change.
He got run over.
Yeah, he did. Well, real quick before we get to that, he did have to start in the back because they had to do an engine change before the race. It was funny. Blake Shelton was there, and Blake Shelton was on pit road, and he was Martin Truex was getting interviewed, and Blake Shelton was standing there hanging out with him, and the interviewer was saying, "Oh, you have to start in the rear of the field," and before Martin had a chance to answer, Blake Shelton said, "You're starting in the rear again? What did you do again this week?" And then Martin said, "No, nothing bad. We just had to change an engine. We had some engine problems, and we had to put a new motor in and made him start in the back." And he came up through the pack, and he was running fast. I feel bad that he got ran over like that and spun because if you listen to the in-car camera, he was actually slowing down for Jimmy Johnson to let Jimmy Johnson in the place. You know what I'm saying? Like he could have nailed Jimmy Johnson and said Jimmy Johnson's spinning, but instead he lifted to let Jimmy Johnson get in front of him, and then he gets run over from behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we had that problem racing that wall, Josh. You don't know to finish the guy off in front of you or cut him a break and then take a chance of getting tagged from behind yourself. It's a tricky part of racing, because you could totally hear Martin get out of the throttle, let Jimmy Johnson up, and the next thing you know, he's into the wall,
And he lifted for not even half a second, but it was that.
Yeah.
That
he was saying that, and it was Eric Almirola that wrecked him, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was saying that Almirola hit him a few times before that too. So it's not – he was mad at Eric because if Martin said he did lift and he did get run over from behind, but the problem was Eric had him a few other times during the race, so it was the same guy, so that made it worse, and that's why Martin was pretty mad about it.
Understandable.
But he handled it well. He's like, we're off to a bad start. We're going to go to Atlanta and get things turning around. So I hope he does, because I tell you what, he's off to a bad start,
Yeah, he had a good car a couple times. He led a few laps, then would drop back, and they were trying to sort it out. And speaking of Truex, his former crew chief, Cole Pern, tweeted, I think it was a day or so, or sometime today or yesterday, saying that, how everybody seems to like this rule package.
I saw that. He said, well, this is the rule package that NASCAR wanted to do a long time ago, but the RTA, the Race Team Alliance thing, fought it. He fought it. They didn't want it, and now it's here, and everybody likes it. So, well, the fans like it, and NASCAR likes it. I don't know if the drivers themselves like it, because the cars were on edge, and they were loose, and they were sliding around.
Mm-hmm. Well, this makes them work.
Yeah, I liked it.
I'm trying to think we're trying to think of any other highlights from the race that I wanted to talk about. There was an uncontrolled tire, I remember.
The crowd was decent. It wasn't spectacular. There was no Ferris wheel there. I did see that there was no Ferris wheel there.
Oh, I mean, it's hard to get it up on that mountain.
I wish Dan Thomas was here, because weren't they bragging about something like 18-inch hot dog you could buy at the racetrack there or something?
Yes. I think what was it?
I sent the article to you guys.
Yes, I remember seeing that. I have it in the show doc too.
A load of stuff piled on top of it too.
Yeah, pull that up, Josh. It's an 18-inch Sonoran hot dog. I don't know exactly what's on it. I forgot already. Yeah, I think Michael Waltrip was when he was up on the mountain. He was.
Josh, see if you can find out some information about that. Meanwhile, while you're looking that up, another unique aspect of this racetrack is they have the grandstands in the turn. Did you notice that? They're not down the straightaway. They're all pretty much set up in the turn where you can see the whole track and pit road and everything like that. And that's like the exciting part of the race course. So they did the grandstands a little bit different at this racetrack. Another rumor that's going around on Facebook, Tim, I don't know if you noticed this too, but they're saying there was a lot of talk in the pits down there because this race is going to be the championship race. And a lot of the hubbub talk in the pits down there, I don't know if it's true or not, but people were saying that this is going to be the last year for Homestead.
Yeah, the property was sold. It's supposed to be put in
supposedly NASCAR
condos or something.
Leases the property that the track sits on, and the lease is up, and the property owners are going to sell it for condos. And part of the reason why NASCAR switched the championship thing over to Arizona to Phoenix is to get a jump start on them losing Homestead.
Yeah.
So this might be the last year for Homestead. That's one of the rumors that were going around out at the racetrack.
He must make an awful lot of money on houses, because you're talking about they're tearing down facilities that are millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was at that facility just a couple months ago. It's not like it's old. It's not like it's run down. It's all up to date. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a beautiful racetrack, But, I mean, there was a lot of houses in that area. But I don't know. It didn't seem like a desired part of the area where the racetrack was at to build houses. But who knows? We did pass a lot of nice houses going there. So
they're taking
a lot of money
the Lakewood route and just bulldozing everything and building condos.
Yeah.
So the loaded 18-inch Sonoran dog, I'm hoping I pronounce it right. It's a 1 pound all beef hot dog wrapped in 4 slices of Applewood bacon, then topped with jalapeno aioli. I'm not sure about that one. Mustard, grilled onions, diced tomatoes, and pinto beans.
You lost me after bacon. After bacon, that menu fell apart. That sandwich fell apart.
The cheese and the bacon sounded good, but then after that, it got a little.
You got to like the beans and the peppers and all that stuff.
Can you imagine?
When we were a kid, my mom used to make us a dinner. It was she called it Hawaiian quail. I don't know where that name came from, but it was basically a hot dog with, she would slice it down the middle. She would put American cheese in it and wrap it in bacon, put bacon around it. And she would actually bake it or broil it, right, Tim? She would put it in the broiler. Yeah, she would broil it in the oven. And then we would put it on those buns that are really made for lobster rolls or whatever. The meat, right, Tim? The main hot dog buns, like they look like a little loaf of bread with the center.
Yeah. It's just so matter of fact that the girls had that on Friday with Grandma Carol.
It sounded like this hot dog was almost a Hawaiian quail until you got to the end and started adding like beans and peppers.
Could you imagine eating that hot dog in 112-degree sun?
Oh, that's another one I wanted to say. They did have a thermometer in Kyle Larson's car, and every time I seen it, it was around between 155 and 160 degrees. A lot of times it was 156, 157. So it was warm down there, and I couldn't imagine sitting in the grandstands eating a big hot dog like that.
Have you seen how nobody sits on Rattlesnake Hill anymore?
The grandstands practically empty, so you got plenty of room to go sit in the grandstands now.
Yeah, but when we were kids, that would be packed up there.
But that's what I'm saying, Tim. Where they put the grandstands now, it's further away from Rattlesnake Hill. So maybe there's no like concession stands or really nothing over that way anymore, and all the excitement's down on the other side of the racetrack now.
There were a few people kind of camped up there, but nobody up at the top for most of it.
Yeah, because I don't even think you can see like pit road and anything from there now. I noticed that too. The crowds just ain't large like they used to be, and there's plenty of grandstands now. Before they used to sit up on that hill because the grandstands were packed. Now they don't really need to go. That was kind of like the overflow.
I feel like I need to go run to Sonic and get a loaded or a chili cheese hot dog. Right now.
Was there a price for that hot dog at the racetrack, Josh? Did they say how much it was? It's got to be.
No, they not in the article that
I don't know. That was a little too much stuff piled on top of a hot dog for me.
I'd take the mustard. The jalapeno thing I'd try, but honestly, I'd even do the. I got chili sitting in the fridge that I got to eat tonight. So I'm just.
Josh, you got the top 10 for us.
I wonder how many grams of sugar are in that.
Probably not a lot. What he rattled off is not a very high sugar content. Actually, other than the bun that thing sits on, everything he listed I could probably eat. Because bacon's
just
protein,
not in that quantity.
Yeah, I just not a whole pound of it. I could eat a section of it, but it probably didn't have a lot of sugar in it at all. Top 10, Josh.
All right, so Joey Logano gets the win. I know a lot of people are unhappy with that. Interesting note, out of all the races so far, every winner has had a double-digit number. So you have the 22, the 11, so it's 1-1, 2-2. Who else? What was it? And Bowman in the 88.
Oh, Bowman in the 88. Chase Elliott hasn't won yet.
So it's been 8-8, 2-2, 1-1 so far.
Oh, cool.
Just a goofy little note because
that's pretty cool. I didn't hear that. I'm glad you brought that up. Tim too. We've always liked double-digit numbers. I've always liked double-digit numbers.
It was just a fun little stat. I mean, will it stay that way? Probably not, but it was interesting and weird. So Kevin Harvick, he had a strong run. He finishes second.
I know I needed him to win. I almost had that bet one. People let you know what my DraftKings. I had a $10 bet on Kevin Harvick, but I only paid $50 to win because he's really good there. And since I knew he had a good chance of winning, but the money wasn't that good to win. Like I said, it was only $50 to win, so I only would have won $40. So I decided to take another bet. I took a $5 bet on Eric Almirola because on a $5 bet with him, it paid $200 to win, and he did. He was fast all weekend down there. He was a top 10 car, so I took a shot at him winning, but I came real close to winning my money back with Kevin Harvick, and he couldn't get Joey Logano there with 2 to go.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was going to have a chance to get up there or not. There was late cautions kind of made things interesting, that's for sure. Kyle Busch finishing third again. For the weekend. Kyle Larson, Clint Boyer with a pretty good finish, fifth place.
It was a good run for
Clint. Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, Eric Almirola, Custer, and Byron round out your top 10.
Oh, wow. So all the Stuart Haas cars were in the top 10 there. I just love like Ryan. I think Ryan Blaney went in there like the points leader, and when he got in a wreck, they made a big deal that the points leader wrecked, and then they made a big deal that Kevin Harvick left there with the points lead. Like with this new chase system, why even talk about the points right now? No one cares about points anymore. You guys lost that topic when you went to this chase system. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not against
Where-
the chase format. But I agree. It's early. Um,
Mm.
I mean, unless you're gonna get a bunch of DNFs or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
like getting a win
Like
and
Truex
getting
is way
locked in.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. If you're way down, like where you're not even like, even if you won a race, you're not like qualified for it because you're so far down. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Well, prime example is everybody's like, "Oh, Martin Truex is done." He's not done. He can go win next week, and he's right back in the chase.
Ryan Newman still has a chance at winning the championship. Because
Kyle Busch did it like that.
yeah, Kyle Busch won it like that. So everybody's still in it as long as you signed up as a full
Speaking
time.
about Ryan Newman, do you think it's weird? Like they're not saying like why and when he's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, he did tell everybody he has a head injury, and he did tell everybody that he doesn't know. They don't know. There's nothing to tell. I know a lot of people were giving him flack because he wasn't really giving any interviews, and he was declining interviews at Phoenix, and a lot of people are mad at him because he's scheduled to be on I think it's Good Morning America or something on Wednesday, and
Okay.
he's supposed to make a bunch of announcements, and a lot of people are mad that. Why is he going on there to make the announcements when he could have made them at the racetrack for the network that films NASCAR and the people that talked about his wreck and all that stuff.
Yeah, unless he's getting a sex change or something, why go on that show?
I really think this comes down to money. They probably offered him a ton of money to be the exclusive interview. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess it just I'm going to speculate that it's some type of concussion, and yeah, but no other
I'm
hints.
looking at it like he's a football player. They get a concussion or they got a concussion protocol, and they don't. There's different stages of a concussion that take longer, and I think he's just in the concussion protocol, like my brother said a while ago. And I don't think I don't think he's hiding anything. I think he told him, he's like, listen, I have no broken bones, no organ damage. I have a head injury, and I don't know when I'm going to be back. When I know, I'll let you know.
Right. Oh, we'll see what happens. I mean,
And he did stand behind the trailer for a little while, and he did talk to like Claire B. Lang and a couple, and he did let him ask a few questions, and he just kept telling him like, listen, I'm just happy to be anywhere right now. I'm lucky to be alive. I went and saw the car. I'm really lucky. I'm just happy to be alive. I'm here to spectate and help my team and help Ross Chastain, and I'll let you guys know more when I know more. He just doesn't know yet.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Anything else? Jimmy Johnson he was up front, then he wasn't. Kind of interest. He was just.
Yeah, he did drop back a little bit, and it's kind of the way he ran last year too. So.
Yeah, where he finished 12th. So, I think Stenhouse got in a wreck. Hamlin had an interesting wreck.
That was his fault.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. So do you think that's short track racing?
Nah, he got in over his head and lost it. He put himself in a bad situation. The car didn't stick. But it happens. I mean, he's racing hard. It happens. Another thing, one quick thing before we go off of the Cup stuff, they did announce that the Clash is going to be run on the road course at Daytona. I talked to some people at the ARC that are race fans or in the racing, and they liked it. They liked the idea that the Clash is going to be on the road course. Personally, I don't like it. I like the oval track racing. I hate when they take an oval. I don't mind the road racing, but I hate when they take an oval track race away in favor of a road course race. But the one cool thing I did notice when they showed a diagram of the racetrack, what the racetrack's going to be for a road course at Daytona. It's basically the same road course that the other guys use, the Rolex 24-hour guys use, but there's no bus stop chicane on the back straightaway. They're doing away with that. They'll let them go wide open on the NASCAR part of the track.
Okay.
So So we might have the best of both worlds with this. You know what I'm saying? We might have drafting and passing through the NASCAR section of it because they don't have to slow down for that bus stop chicane at the end of the straightaway going into turn 3, and then we'll have the road course excitement on the other end of the track. So it might be pretty cool.
I think it's going to be interesting watching them all pile down into the first turn, kind of a thing. I think we're going to see a lot of mistakes, and maybe that's a good thing. But also,
imagine going from that speed, because if they have from turn 2 all the way around to the start finish line on the big track, they're going to be getting up to 180, 190 miles an hour. Now they got to slow down to next to nothing. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah. And it's well, overall that's going to be exciting, but also maybe the cars won't get quite as destroyed. But here's the other thing: are those cars the ones that have to race?
No,
even with
old
the regular
style
track.
cars.
Yeah, they always bought Busch Class cars down. The Busch Class car was basically their
Well, even they're the old style cars. They're going to have 5 lug nuts, not one. It's the old style car.
Okay.
Not the new style car.
Even for next year?
For the Busch Clash.
Oh, really? They're going to use up their old style cars?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's a good one last hurrah.
All right, so that moves us to the local section. You guys ready to move to the local section?
Let me see. Was there anything else I want to talk about?
You know where Hot Pocket's car finished?
Oh, yeah, Joey Gase. I think he was 29th. He broke into the 20s.
Hot Pockets has been averaging a 31st place finish with us.
So yes, 29th is where Joey Gase finished. Was it Dale Jr. selling his Florida house? Finally wising up and getting the hell out of Florida.
Well, no, he actually has 2 houses down in the Keys, because I've been to the Keys once, so I'm an expert on the Keys. He actually has 2 houses in the Keys. He has one down in Key West, and he has one in Islamorada. That was the same town.
The one that they showed, the pictures
was beautiful, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like
how cool was the kitchen, man? Did you see the kitchen, Tim? It had like the pirate ship theme to it.
Yeah.
It was cool. But you know what? It's an investment. We looked into it a little bit. He paid $2.4 million for that house, and he's selling it for $3.7 million. So it's not like he's sick of it and he's just selling it and losing money on it. And that's a perfect little. Key West is a great town, but it's a party town. It's a huge party town, and now he's a family man, so I think he's just selling his party house. You know what I'm saying? It's a cool place to go with your buddies and your friends and your girlfriends and stuff like that, and your wife. But once you start having kids and you're raising kids, it's really not a kid-friendly town.
Well, if I get the job driving the hot dog wagon, the Weenie Mobile, I'll go halves with you. We can buy that if you want.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's nice. I can imagine with the property taxes on there too. Key West is a real cool town, and it's a real old town, and the houses are old pirate houses and all that stuff. And it's been there forever, but it's a small town. It's almost just picture like Farmingdale, with Main Street and all that stuff. And there's not a lot of building space there, so the houses are so much money because if anybody wants there, you got to pay top dollar for it because they're not building anymore. They're out of room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But his house looked awesome, man. The place is probably going to sell pretty quick. It was definitely a cool place. But I know he still has a house in Islamorada, which is about 80 miles north in the Keys from Key West. So he'll probably just hang out at that house instead of down there,
Yeah, Florida's Florida to me.
But it's not Florida now. Even the people that live down there in the Keys, they don't even consider themselves Florida. They just consider themselves like a tropical island,
Yeah, that's.
I told you guys that story when I was down there. I said, and people were like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm from up north." They're like, "Where? Miami?" Like Miami was north of it. I'm like, no, further north than that. They're like, "Where? Orlando? You from Orlando?" I'm like, "No, I'm from New Jersey." They're like, "Oh,
okay." Let's see, what else did we have on here? I think that covers the NASCAR stuff. I did want to go in before we go to local. So under our IndyCar and F1 stuff, I did want to mention it's been on there for a while that Daytona has to notify the power company whenever they plan on turning on the lights because it's such a large draw on the power grid to light the whole track.
Oh, I could imagine.
Yeah, so they actually have to give a notification before they can.
No, that's probably just the Indy cars don't race there, but that's why do you have that under the IndyCar section?
More for the Rolex.
For Rolex. Oh, okay.
the road course stuff.
I tell you what, if we really looked into that, I bet you a lot of the tracks got to do that. I bet you Daytona's not the only one. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I could see like maybe Bristol doesn't need to because it's
It's a smaller track.
yeah.
Yeah, where Daytona's a 2.5 mile track, and then you're trying to light the whole road course up as well. Yeah, I'm sure it is a big draw. I wonder what would happen if they didn't notify the town and they just turned it on. Would it cause a big blackout in the whole town?
I wouldn't be surprised if it did that.
Do you blow like a huge fuse somewhere? Like when I turn the welder on in my garage, the fuse blows. Is there a big fuse if they turn their power on?
All the power lines start sagging because they get so hot.
But I tell you what, I've been at racetracks where, if you notice, they got to turn the lights on before it gets dark because it takes a while for the lights to warm up and get bright.
Yes.
And I've been at racetracks, even these little short tracks I race in at, they'll turn the lights on in sections. Like they'll turn 1 and 2 on first, and then they'll turn 3 and 4 on, and then the straightaways, and then they'll turn the pit lights on, and they start doing it as the sun goes down. This way, all the lights are up and bright by the time it gets dark.
Yeah, you want it to almost not be noticeable when they come on. I did want to mention Townsend Bell did an auction. He was auctioning off one of his fire suits, and with all the proceeds going to Bob Varsha with his cancer battle. And the more breaking news is the Bahrain GP or Grand Prix for Formula One is apparently going to have no spectators. They are running a closed race, and the only people there are going to be the drivers and the crews and officials, and that's out of extra over-the-top precautions to help prevent the spread of our friend the coronavirus.
You know what? I wonder if that's true. I wonder if it's almost like an excuse because they were losing money anyway with the spectator part of it, and then it's like an excuse to drop it, or it's an excuse for them to try to have a race without spectators and to see how it shows on TV. The problem was, now if we sit home and watch this race on TV, it might not look as exciting because you don't see especially over there when you watch F1 races, it's almost like watching the soccer games over there where they're waving flags in the grandstands, and they'll sit in sections of the grandstands with their own countries and they root for their countrymen drivers. It gets like that soccer feel where the grandstands are real exciting to watch as the race is going on. Now you're going to lose that appeal from even watching it from the TV. It's almost like this is a test for them to show if the race still stays exciting watching it on TV with nobody watching it.
Well, I'm not entirely sure that I agree with that, and I say that because there, even like now, let's pick a NASCAR race when the crowd is dramatically smaller than normal. Occasionally you can notice it, maybe from the blimp or helicopter shots, but for the most part, the cameramen and the producers and directors
they kind of hide it. But you do notice that when they're at a sold out Daytona, they definitely show the race from a wider angle where you can see the grandstands. And I always notice when there is a bad crowd at NASCAR, they kind of zoom away from the grandstands and show the cars up closer. They kind of hide the fact that the grandstands are empty,
Yes.
I tell you the truth, it does show more excitement for me because when I tune into a race, the first thing I look at is the crowd. And if the place is packed, it makes it a little bit more exciting for me to watch. When it's empty, it's like, no one cares,
Well, Bernie Ecclestone was kind of known for, he didn't really care about the grandstand, ticket sales. Just because he could make so much more with the TV ad sales.
Yeah. Are you worried about the 100,000 people at the race track itself, or are you worried about tens of millions of people watching worldwide? Because, like you said, this racing's on the other side of the world, and at 9 a.m. in the morning, I can wake up in Manchester, New Jersey, and watch it on TV.
Yeah. Now, I feel bad for anybody who bought a ticket, wanting to go and see it live. But, like we said, the camera crews will probably work around it. Let's see, Bob Varsha also talked about this in Bernard Ecclestone's position. And is that ticket sales were one of the very few revenue streams left to the race promoter. If Bernie Ecclestone wasn't making a buck on it, he had no interest in it, and he apparently feels that way about social media as well. Um,
Yeah,
but
free.
but if you look at it now, the track doesn't have to pay, you know,
Security.
let's say 90%, like security, the concession
Clean up.
sales, and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a test. I tell you what, if it works well and they think it's more profitable by not having the people in the grandstands, you might see more tracks do it next year. I mean, we talked about it here a long time ago that Bruton Smith said he would love to have a Wednesday night 200 lapper at Bristol with nobody in the grandstands and just make TV money off it.
Yeah, it seems
And then
weird.
the TV might like it because that 100,000 people that can't go there to watch it, now they're watching it on TV.
They could do it at North Wilkesboro with no bathrooms.
Yeah, sure could. I don't even know if, I don't even think North Wilkesboro has enough power for a TV.
they got to email the town 4 weeks ahead to say they're going to turn the lights on there.
But you're right, Tim. They could have a race at North Wilkesboro for the Cup cars and not worry about the bathrooms not working and the grandstands falling down because there ain't going to be nobody in them anyway, you know? All right, there's your shot, Tim. It might happen. Unfortunately, your season pass won't work now because now they're closing out the spectators.
Well, no. Somebody still has to get the grass cleared out before the race. But
Josh, I did mention yesterday I did take a little nap during the Cup race, and I did have a couple cups of coffee with dinner. So when it was time to go to bed last night, I was wide awake and could not fall asleep. So Nancy went upstairs to go to sleep. I stayed on the couch and I went on Netflix to see if there was anything cool to watch. And I know the show's a little old. It started in 2018, and I'm sure some of our listeners probably already watched it and know about it. But there's something on Netflix. It's a Formula One thing. I think it's called Surviving Formula One. And there's a handful of drivers they follow around through a couple of years of racing. And it's really cool. It's really well done. It shows all the back stuff at Red Bull. All the back stuff for Renault, the Renault team, and McLaren and all them. It's really cool. It's a really good show. If anybody has Netflix, check it out. It's definitely cool. It's definitely something totally different. I tell you what, by watching that show and seeing how high-tech Formula One is and how big Formula One is, it makes NASCAR look like factory stock racing at Wall Stadium.
It does.
I mean, they bring, like, we think NASCAR is fancy because they have these fancy tractor trailer haulers and their fancy pit carts. They have full buildings on pit road for race teams in Formula One.
Yeah.
Like the guys that pit the car actually run out of a building, an air conditioned building with TVs and everything to pit the car, and then they run back into the building.
The setup is wild. I mean,
and then I seen Renault. They had a building that was totally matched their race team. The whole building was painted yellow and red, and their sponsors on it, and the numbers in it. Tim, then in this building, you know how like you walk into a NASCAR hall or even like you modified tour guys, they'll have the radios lined up on the counter, and it looks cool because they have 20 headsets and 20 radios set up all on chargers. This building, there must have been 300 radios and headsets set up for these race teams and sponsors to listen to the race. Like the technology is through the roof, crazy, man.
Yeah, that and the way they accommodate some of the special VIP guests where they actually have them in that garage.
I know. They had like musicians and rock stars and movie stars over there. And they went crazy when they met the drivers. The drivers didn't go crazy when they met them. Like it's the total opposite.
Yeah.
Like the team owners and the head, like what would they want to call it, a crew chief over there, the head engineer or whatever over there. They walk around like rock stars over there.
It's a completely different animal. It's interesting. It's fun to watch and to get a different perspective.
But the funny part is, here they are spending millions and millions of dollars on all this fancy stuff, and the car pits, and the guy who doesn't get the lug nut tight, and the whole day's done.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure.
The only thing I don't like about F1, one little mistake, and they just retire the car. Like they leave the lug nut, and the tire comes off, they just tell them to park it in the grass and retire the car. That's it. They're done.
Yeah. There's hardly any troubleshooting or anything or trying to fix the car. I was so annoyed back with that whole tire debacle at Indy years ago. I was like, well, send, when they retired all these teams, when they protested and didn't want to start the race. It's like, well, 6 cars are going to run the race. said, quick, send me out. Send me out. I'll run like 2 laps and I'll finish ahead of all those other guys.
And there was one race where the guy wrecked on the first lap. That's another thing about F1. I can't believe how many wrecks happen on the very first lap. Like that's when they wreck. Well, you get through the first lap, you're pretty much home free because now it's single file and they just follow each other around, and there's not much passing. But man, they wreck out on the first lap a lot. And then one guy said, fix the car the best you can. They put a whole nose piece on it and the wing, and the right front was a little bent, and he just ran it. And he ended up finishing 7th because he toughed out the whole day, where the other guys in the wreck just parked their car and there was minimal damage,
Yeah.
But I guess at those speeds and how light those cars are built, they just don't want any chance. Once they hit wheels, they just park them,
The parts are so sensitive. I mean, they're built to handle the forces that the car is expected to experience by running and not hitting anything. And the second that they go over that, they fail. Like they're designed to do this, and that's it.
All right, enough of Indian F1. We went a few shows without talking about it. We just touched on it a little bit. But there is a cool thing called, I know my brother ain't going to watch it, but on Netflix there is a cool F1 series. I think it's called Surviving F1 or something like that. It's really, really good.
If I find it, I'll share a link on the.
All right, we're going to move to the local section. Unfortunately, we got some very, very bad news this week. And really two things happened this week. We're going to start off with the passing of Danny Serrano. Danny was the general manager down at Bridgeport. Danny was a super race fan. I mean, he was more of an employee at a racetrack, that's for sure. He was I think he's like one of the only guys I ever met that actually likes racing more than me. He just loved it. He loved it. Dirt, asphalt, didn't matter. Cup, Indy, Formula One. You can talk anything with Danny. Danny would talk anything about racing with you. Unexpectedly too. Like I said, I ran into him a couple weeks ago at a restaurant in Bayville, or on Beechwood, I should say. And it was a chance meeting because he actually went to a different restaurant and the place was so packed he couldn't get in. So that's why he came to the restaurant that I was at. It was just a total chance meeting. And I kind of felt bad for him and his girlfriend because they just go in there to talk, to have dinner. And next thing I'm asking them a million questions about the new factory stock division they're starting down at Bridgeport. And and he did talk to me about it. And then I finally left. When their food came out, I left him and his girlfriend alone to eat their dinner. And then when Danny was done eating, he actually came over and sat at our table and he showed me pictures of the racetrack and explained to me how things were going to work and how happy he was and how excited he was. And they either, him and his girlfriend either bought a motorhome or were buying a motorhome or were going to buy a motorhome to travel more this year, to go to even more races with a motorhome. That was their dream, to get a motorhome and go to all these racetracks. Because, Danny's a huge dirt fan, and even though he's busy at Bridgeport on the weekends, there's a lot of midweek shows in dirt racing in the area, and then we're going to go to a lot of the midweek shows and stuff. Unfortunately, Danny just suddenly just passed away out of nowhere, and it's a crying shame. It's going to be a big loss for Bridgeport. I know it's a big loss for me. Selfishly, it's a big loss for me because he was my contact down there. Whenever I had a question about bringing my car down there for the enduro racing, he was the guy I called. I could message him on Facebook at any time, and he would message me right back. He lived right by us, Josh. He lived right in Tom's River off 37. Mm-hmm. So, there was times I ran into him like at Wawa's and stuff like that. And it was always cool talking racing with him. It was a shocker, man. When I woke up and saw it on Facebook, I'm like, no way, like it's just one of those, like I said, I just saw him at the dinner, just talked to him. And the other sad part about it is this whole thing of them switching this track to this half mile down in Bridgeport, it was kind of his baby, it was his idea. He picked the track that he wanted to build this track right, and here it is almost done. I think they're having practice March 21st down there, and he's not here to see it. He's not here to see it through, so that's what kind of makes it sad. I even got to race with Danny a little bit. A couple of times he would jump into someone's 8-cylinder enduro car and race with us. He was just a great guy. He just loved racing. Mm-hmm. And he would come to Turkey Derby every year at Wall Stadium, and he would sit in the grandstands and drink and have a good time with everybody in the grandstands. And that was his one race where he wasn't working. He could just party his face off and sit in the grandstands and watch the races.
Yeah, I think I met him once or twice down at Bridgeport when I ran the few enduros down there. Didn't get to know him really well, but I mean the name you knew the name. We were supposed to have him on when we were at Motorsports, right?
Yeah, we did talk to him about motorsports, and he just couldn't get away from the Bridgeport booth to come over and talk to us over there, But every time he's seen Danny anywhere, he greeted you with a big smile and a high five, and I posted on my Facebook page a picture of me and him in Victory Lane in Bridgeport, and the story behind that is Lee Allen called me one day and said, "Listen, we need car count down at Bridgeport. I have another car. If I let you run that car, can you handle getting it down there and paying to get in and the fuel and everything like that to help car count? And you get to try to do some dirt racing." And he told me what car it was. He's like, it was Paul Hartwick's Orange 73. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, Scott, I'm telling you, I redid that whole car. Every nut and bolt on it's brand new. It's a good car. You'll be competitive in it. You're not wasting your time. And I even told my brother too, because he's like, it's sitting at my brother's house in Old Bridge. Go check it out. If you want to run it, just grab it and take it home with you. And you got to put fuel in it. You got to take care of it, and you can race it. So I went to Lee's brother's house and looked at the car, and it was beautiful. Him and his family did a great job totally rebuilding this car. It was beautiful. So I threw it right on my flatbed and took it home. So I got down to Bridgeport with it. And the first time I went down to Bridgeport, the car ran good, but the carburetor wasn't working good. So I asked Lee if I can take the car home again and rebuild the carburetor and get it working good. And said, Lee's like, yeah, do whatever you want. Get the car running good, and you can drive it. So the second time I went to Bridgeport, I pulled in, and Danny came cruising over on a quad and thanked me for coming down, because we raced on Friday nights, and it's tough to make it down there on Friday nights. You're battling the traffic, and it's a work day and all that stuff. And he knew I had a race wall on Saturday. He knew I was really, going out on a limb and going out of my way to come down there and race. And he came over and thanked me. I said, Danny, no problem. I'm down here to help car count. And he laughed at me. He's like, Scott, I've been watching you race a long time, and you ain't here to help car count. You're here to win. I said, Danny, I'm just an asphalt guy. You got the Allen brothers here. They're really good on dirt. And you had a couple guys from Grandview racing there, and they're really good on dirt. I said, I'm just here to have some fun and help car count. He's like, Scott, one of my things is if you ever came into my office, I have pictures of in Victory Lane with anybody that wins their first dirt race. I take a picture with them and I hang it in my office. And I said, well, you ain't got to worry about that with me. I'm just here to help car count. And he just laughed again. He said, I'll see you in Victory Lane tonight. And he drove away on his quad. Sure enough, man, I couldn't believe it. I won that freaking race that night. And then here's me and Danny in Victory Lane taking a picture together. He's like, I told you. He's like, that's a good car. I knew you can get it done, And he hung that picture. The picture that I posted on Facebook, Danny actually hung in his office, and I thought that was pretty cool. He had more confidence in my ability than I did. I really didn't think I could win down there, and I ended up winning that night, He's just, every time he pulled into the pits, he had a smile on his face, And even if sometimes you would pass him and he'd be taking care of some problem, putting out a fire or something like that, he would at least acknowledge you when you drove by. He would wink at you, he'd nod his head, and he'd just give you a thumbs up or just a smile. He would take the second to make eye contact with you, to let you know that, hey, I'm busy right now, but I'm glad you're here. He's just one of those guys.
Yeah, I haven't heard, and this is going, from obviously before his passing. I've never heard a bad thing about him.
Nah.
It just, he, like you said, loved racing, loved everybody that was involved with it, and it was like there was the problems were almost fun because he was making racing better, whether it be a division, a track, or whatever. It just, he was making it better, and everybody liked him.
And there was times he would tell us one thing, and we would go down there and it would get changed around, and it wouldn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out. And he would call me during the week and apologize, because there's times we're going, I'm giving you guys 40 laps. We're going to give you 40 laps. And then, we show up with 7 cars and it's getting late. So they cut our race to 25 laps. He would call me on like Tuesday and say, Scott, I'm so sorry, man. I promised you guys 40 laps. They cut us to 25. I'm like, Dan, I understood. It was 11 o'clock at night and we had 7 cars. You know what I'm saying? I understand. He was quick to apologize. He was quick to admit that he was wrong if something didn't work out the way we were hoping. He was just, he's hard to explain. It was a very nice, honest guy, and that's all I expect out of racing, and we used to complain that they wet the track down too much for us, and then he promised he would change that, and then one night we went down there and he soaked the track again, and he apologized and promised it would never happen again, and the next time we went back down there, they didn't soak the track down, so like he was true to his word, and if his word didn't come true, he would apologize for it,
Yeah, it's a tough loss.
It is a tough loss. It's a tough loss for Bridgeport and racing in general. Like I said, at the motorsports show, he wanted to come over and do the podcast with us. But every time I walked by the Bridgeport booth, he would have a line of people talking to him, and he would wink at me and say, "Scott, I'm trying to get over there. I'm trying to get over." I said, "I understand, Danny. You're here to do a job too." And even then, he called me that Monday and said, "Hey, sorry, I never made it over there. I know I promised you and Nancy I'd come over and do the podcast." He says, from the time that show opened to the time it closed, I had a line of people at the Bridgeport booth, and I understood,
Yeah, I mean, it's in a selfish way. It's a shame we never got him on, or but it's it's sad that it went the way it did.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see what Bridgeport does without Danny. It's gonna be tough to go down there without him being down there. That's for sure. Another sad thing I woke up to the other day, I think it was yesterday or today, was Tim. You know this guy too, and not really local to us, but local to Florida. He was a Florida late model sensation down there. David Rogers passed away from cancer. David Rogers, I used to watch him whenever we went to New Smyrna for Speed Weeks. I even watched him in the Governor's Cup race when I went over to New Smyrna when I was down in Florida and watched the Governor's Cup race. He was a very famous late model racer in Florida. He's won championships at New Smyrna, Orlando Speed World. He won over there. There was a couple other tracks he won championships in there. Florida racing in Florida is so big that he never really needed to leave that state. It's like its own little country down there for racing. I think he won the Florida State Late Model Championship like 6 or 7 times. I did see pictures of him racing in like the old Busch Grand National race at Daytona and stuff like that. He just raced all over Florida, and he was great. I think he's qualified for every snowball derby at Pensacola, Florida since like 1974.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a tough race. I know the last one he was sick and he didn't really run that good, and they gave him like a promoter's choice or something like that to get him in the race, and it was like his 38th snowball derby in a row or something like that, like something crazy like that. He won it a bunch of times. There's a bunch of awards named after him. He wanted to get a stomach operation like in 2018, and they discovered he had cancer then when they did blood work. Josh, you probably know more about that than me, but they found that he had cancer when they did his blood work for a surgery he was going in for his stomach. Mm-hmm. And it was bad. The cancer was really bad. But he kept racing. He kept racing for a while, and then when the treatments got too bad, he actually let Bubba Pollard run his late model for a while too when he couldn't drive. And he just returned back to racing, and they were saying cancer was gone. Like he had a clean bill of health. He was free to go back racing and everything like that. And he ran the World Series and everything. And he just fell ill again, like over the weekend, and he passed away right away from complications of cancer, So it was tragic. His cars were famous because he was sponsored. I don't know if he owned the ranch or anything, but he was sponsored by TW Ranch, and he ran the number 11, and the numbers were actually horse heads.
Okay.
Like the digit 1 was a horse head, and the other digit 1 was a horse head. So it looked like 2 horse heads. That was his number 11. And that car, whenever I went to New Smyrna, that car was there. It was always a front runner, Tim, I'm sure you watched him race many nights when you're down at New Smyrna, with the Goodales and with John and all them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was still racing at age 64 with cancer. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, he raced right to the very end. It's a very shame. It's a shame to see that Dave Rogers passed away after we all thought he beat the cancer. They had stickers out at New Smyrna saying "Cancer started the race, but David's going to win it." So it's just a tough loss, I know, for the Florida late model racing scene down there. So rest in peace, David.
You mentioned Bubba Pollard ran his car, right?
Yes.
Now, he just is going to be joining the ARCA East series with DJR.
Yeah, I saw that. He's going to drive for David Gillen Racing, Crosley David Gillen Racing. He's going to run Pensacola. They're racing there this weekend. This Saturday they're racing there. And the tie-in there is Bubba Pollard's very good at that racetrack. He's won the Snowball Derby there. He wins a lot of late model races there. So he got an ARCA East ride for that race. And I tell you what, he's going to be one of the guys I'm going to be watching. He's got a real good chance of winning that race. He also had a modified ride driving Ryan Preece's car at New Smyrna this year for the World Series, but unfortunately the car blew up on the very first practice session they went out in, and they didn't have a backup motor. They said they had a backup motor, but not one good enough to win with, and he was there to win. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he never raced. They opted to withdraw the car for the weekend, the first speed week. So it's cool he picked up an ARCA ride. He's one of those guys, Josh. He kills him in the late model with the super late model, and everybody wondered why he never got the chance. Now he's older. And he's kind of like a Tony Stewart guy, like always like scruffy beard, a little overweight. He's not a pretty boy. He tells you what he feels, like he's not politically correct. So they think that's kind of the reason what keeps him out of the big time NASCAR racing. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
he's one of those guys that he's making a great living with the late model. I mean, a lot of these races pay $40,000-$50,000 to win these late model races. He wins a lot of $10,000 to win races. So he makes a good living with the late model stuff. He just never moved up to the big time. And it's nice to see him get a shot in this ARCA car to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Another new thing is this Max McLaughlin is going to be joining the Mod Tour at South Boston, I saw as well. Tim, was that your link that you sent?
Yeah, so you got it, Scott. I guess he's going to be driving the 77 for Putnam at the first race.
That's pretty cool. Max McLaughlin is Mike McLaughlin's son, who used to win a lot of races in the modifieds and championships and moved on to the Xfinity series and stuff like that. And I'm sure he's tied in with Bono and Gary Putman, and now they're putting Max in the car at South Boston. He'll run good.
Yeah, he ran a couple races in last year up at Stafford, I think it was, or Thompson. I forget. And he was very impressive. So I think he'll be fine. As long as he doesn't burn the tire.
Modifieds, he races the
Yeah, he's just got to.
ARCA East.
As long as he doesn't burn the tires off of it, he's a little aggressive.
Yeah. So that's cool. Something to watch at South Boston. We'll see how old Max McLaughlin runs down there.
Now help me out. Where is South Boston? That's in Massachusetts, right?
No, South Boston
Virginia.
is in Virginia.
Why would you call it Boston? And anyway,
South Boston. It's the home
You've
of
been to
the.
South Boston before, right?
Oh yeah, a couple times.
Yeah,
It's the home of the
South
original.
Boston is where the Burtons are from. Ward Burton, Jeff Burton. That was their home track
And Sadlers.
in the Saddlers.
Yep. It's the home of the original bologna burger.
okay, all right. I did not know that. All right. So let's see. What else did we have here?
I got a little embarrassing story on all this. We got pranked last week with this Wienermobile story, and we talked about you could buy the Wienermobile for $12,000, and I was going to buy it for my brother. Then, as soon as we got off the air, I guess an oracle came out saying it was a joke.
Fake. Another nail in the coffin of my dream of owning. Almost had my brother buy me the Wienermobile, and it was a fake story. Another
I
nail
guess
in the
someone
coffin.
just posted this saying that the Wienermobile was for sale at $12,000, knowing it was a cheap price, and people would be calling like crazy. And he put his friend's phone number on there, so his friend had over 1 million phone calls to his phone. People trying to buy this thing. That's a good prank, man. I never thought about doing something like that. So the Wienermobile was not for sale last week, and it was a prank.
I wonder how many phone calls he got asking for pictures of it.
All right. So that's that one. All right, we're going to start a new little segment here. We're going to do it with the local stuff.
Oh, actually,
because
Scott,
we
did
don't
you
have
want to talk about Bethel real quick?
Oh, yeah. Bethel Speedway posted on their Facebook page. We did have Michael Hager back on, who's a general manager of Bethel Mercer, you're part of the management team or whatever his title was. He came on with us over the winter, and we did talk about his racetrack when I went up there in November and raced. And we talked about all the good things about the racetrack. And one of the complaints I had about that racetrack was the guardrail was horrible. I mean, hideous guardrail. It was jagged, rusty, missing in sections. Like, it was a very, very dangerous guardrail, and that was one of the downfalls of that racetrack. This week on Facebook, they did post pictures. They're replacing the guardrail. They said it's part one of like a total like improvement phase of Bethel Motor Speedway. So I'm glad that they listened to a lot of the competitors. I know one of the problems was that's a perfect track for the TQ midgets to race at because of the size of the track and how smooth the track is. It's a perfect racing surface and size for the TQ midgets. But if one of those cars got up into that wall, it would be ugly. So I know that TQ Midget Series was really complaining about the guardrail, and now Bethel was making improvements on the guardrail. They showed the whole front straightaway. They had all the guardrail ripped out, and they're putting all new guardrail up. So I'm real happy to see that at Bethel.
All right, that's cool. Where is Bethel located?
Bethel is in Bethel Woods, New York. It's in the same town that Woodstock was in 1969.
Okay. How long of a drive is that from like Tom's River, Scott?
From my house in Manchester, it was 170 miles. Where Evergreen's 160 miles from my house, it's only 10 miles further than, say, going to Evergreen. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so it's still probably, what, about a 3-hour drive?
Yeah, it was 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, something like that.
Okay. Just curious. All right. Now, moving on from that, Scott came up with a fun new idea for the show, kind of a new segment, new something, we'll call it.
Yeah, it's a new segment. I just thought because local's a little light right now, we all watch video clips on YouTube and stuff like that, and we always end up talking about them anyway. And I always, I drive around in my tow truck all day, and I listen to all sorts of podcasts. Like I just mentioned the Formula One race on Netflix. I thought it'd be cool for us to start a little section called the RPM podcast recommendations and what's the other word, Josh? Recommendations and reviews. Recommendations and reviews. We can recommend it and we can review if we thought it was any good or not. So I did listen to a few things. I listened to Dale Jr.'s podcast, which is always good. I mean, I haven't really ever heard a bad Dale Jr. podcast, but this one was very good. They had James Finch on. James Finch was a very controversial car owner in NASCAR. He owned ARCA cars. He owned trucks. He owned Cup cars, and he's owned Xfinity cars. He's owned them all. He's another Florida racer that pretty much loves racing in Florida. So whenever they raced at Daytona, he would enter a car, and whatever was racing there. If the ARCA cars were there, he'd have an ARCA car. If the trucks were there, he'd have a truck. Like he'd enter everything that raced at Daytona, and he would use the same crew of like 5 guys to field all these vehicles.
Wow.
He owns a huge construction company. Whenever you're in Florida, you'll see him on the side of the road building bridges and highways. It's called Phoenix Construction. That's what affords him this lifestyle where he can afford race cars. He's just one of those tell it as is guys. Like, he wouldn't be afraid to say anything to NASCAR because he was pretty much funding most of this out of his own pocket. He didn't have to kiss anybody's butt or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And he's known for bringing young guys in the race and, stuff like that. And he was a party guy, and he would literally walk around Daytona with a solo cup filled with, he said his drink of choice was Crown Royal on ice. So he would walk down pit road, but since he was James Finch, no one bothered him. He would sit there and drink Crown Royal right on pit road and everything like that. He had a lot of good stories. He said one year he won the Richmond race with Jimmy Spencer driving, and it was the Xfinity race. And he said they paid him like a lot of money, like $50,000 or $60,000 for winning this Xfinity race. And that's when the Sawyer family owned Richmond. The next year, NASCAR bought Richmond, and they won the same race again. And they got a check in the mail for like $17,000.
Wow.
Like there was a drastic cut in purse. So he sent the check back to NASCAR, and he wrote a handwritten note saying, the purse dropped from $50,000 to $17,000, and the grandstands were packed. He had 85,000 people in the grandstands, and he figured it out. It came out to like 18 cents a head, or something like that for what he paid him. He's like, it's obvious you guys need the money more than me. So he sent the check back to NASCAR and told him to keep the money. And that was cool about. That was a cool thing about him being on the show. A lot of people hide numbers, like they'll say, "Oh, it was expensive. It's a lot of money." He would just blurt the numbers right out, so you got to see, what the real cost of racing and how much you made and stuff like that. His car was also famous for that win at Talladega when Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski were wrecked. Brad Keselowski was driving that '09 Mikusuki gaming car. That was Finch's car.
Okay.
And he said they won that race. And we were talking about it earlier in the show. Brad didn't wreck Carl to be a dirty driver. The year before, Regan Smith got the win taken away from him because he went under the yellow line. And we were just talking about that yellow line thing. Well, this race, Carl came down to block Brad, and Brad wasn't going to go under the yellow line. He wasn't going to lift, and that's what sent he turned Carl and sent Carl into the fence, flipping and all that stuff, and that was that big wreck, and Brad ended up winning. And he always liked Brad Keselowski because, his family went broke in racing, and they're grassroots racers trying to make it in the big leagues. So he said he paid $260,000 to win that race. And he told Brad Keselowski, listen, I'm going to give you all the money. They had some handshake deal where Brad would get 50% of the winnings and he would keep 50% of the winnings. He's like, listen, I'm going to give you my 50% of the winnings, but you got to buy something nice for your parents. You got to do something nice for them. Like he was hoping he would pay off like their house mortgage or something like that.
Right.
And Brad said, fine. So they said that, it takes you like a couple of weeks to get the check and all that. So like a month went by. So he said, Brad, what did you do with all that money? Did you take care of your parents? He's like, yeah, I got my mom like Molly maid service or something like that for a year. It was like $2,000 to get like, a cleaning lady to come to your house once a week for a year or something like that. He's like, no, I meant like buy her a car or pay her house off, not a cleaning service for a year. He's like, he told me to do something nice. My mom doesn't have to clean the house for a year, So that was kind of a funny story, He's just a crazy party guy. He ran most of his racing stuff out of Florida because that's where he was from. He said he actually bought an old folks home, like a retirement home down there.
All right.
That had like 20 bedrooms and a kitchen and like like a dining room and all that stuff. He bought that and converted it over to like almost like a frat house for his race team. Like he would because he couldn't get no help because he was in Florida, and people were like, well, we all live in North Carolina. So he bought like this old folks retirement built place and turned it into like a frat house for his race team guys. Because he's like, listen, you come work for me, I give you room and board for free and pay you. So, and he talked about some of the people that worked for him. Robbie Loomis was a guy who went on to win championships with Jeff Gordon. He went through that frat house. Timmy talked about Matt Hutter. Matt Hutter worked for him through Ron Hutter. He said even today, and Tim, that's another reason why you should listen to this. He talks about Ron Hutter a lot. Me and Tim were always fans of Ron Hutter, Hutter race engines, because he built all Richie Evans's modified motors when Richie was winning all these championships, and me and Tim were kids watching Richie Evans race. He said even today he has a Hutter motor in his son's late model. He said a lot of the races he's won were with the Hutter motors. And then Dale Jr. chimed in and he said, with the 2 years I won championships in the Grand National Series, he was using Hutter motors as well.
Huh.
So it was pretty cool hearing a little bit about Ron Hutter in that interview. He said Matt Hutter worked for him down there and tuned their engines and lived in that frat house. Then Clint Boyer spent a lot of time with James Finch and got to know James Finch real good. And, Clint Boyer's a little bit on the crazy side too. And he said he dared Dale Jr. to ask James Finch this question on the air and everything, and he didn't think Dale Jr. would do it, and Dale Jr. did ask the question. There was a plaque in a go-go bar down there with James Finch's name on it, and it had like a pin board on it, like where you would stick pins in it.
Okay.
And there were 78 pins in it, right? And he asked, Clint Boyer dared him to ask James Finch what the pins indicated, like what did they stand for, like why would a pin be stuck in this board, and why was there 78 of them? And James Finch said, listen, the board's not there anymore, I don't do it anymore. But he was buying all these girls breast implants, so he bought 78 girls breast implants. It was like the James Finch breast club.
He said they were cheaper than buying a set of tires, so that's what he did it for.
Yeah, he said I was getting breast implants for the same amount I'd buy a set of tires for, so it was no big deal for me. He's like, he kept saying he's like buying him a set of tires. It was like buying him a set of tires,
Wow.
He said he still buys half the late models in Florida tires, so it was no big deal to them buying breast implants, So it's a cool show. Check it out. James Finch on Dale Jr. Dale Jr.'s podcast. He talks about Neil Bonnet. He owned the car that Neil Bonnet got killed in, so he talks a little bit about that day. It was a very sad day. They actually wanted to put, I think, Al Unser Jr. in the car or something that weekend because Al Unser was down there racing for IROC anyway, and they were sponsored by Country Time Lemonade, and they wanted to still put a car in the Daytona 500, and Country Time already talked to Al Unser Jr. about driving James Finch's backup car, and James Finch said, nope. We came down here with Neil Bonnet. We're leaving with Neil Bonnet. The car's not racing, you know. So, and that was a big Procter and Gamble sponsor and everything. He's still, you know, he's just one of those guys that had a lot of courage and guts, and you know, he stood up for himself no matter what he thought. You know, it's a real cool interview. You got to watch it. Then this Tuesday, Dale Jr. is having Ken Schrader on, so I'm sure that's going to be an awesome interview because Ken Schrader was good friends with Dale Sr., and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool Dale Sr. stories and stuff like that. So check them out.
Ken Schrader raced down in Atlantic City, right?
Not that I know of.
I thought he did.
Not that I know of. Ken Schrader's raced at the Turkey Derby. He drove one of Harry Reid's cars.
I swear he raced at the indoor.
He might have when it first started or something. Anyway, well, Josh is looking that up to prove me wrong. I haven't talked about this show in a while, but when I first started coming on the RPM podcast, I always talked about the Dinner with Racers podcast. It's Eric Brennan is the one that told me about this, and I really enjoy it. They went on a while. They went a while without having a podcast on, but now they just released a bunch of them, a bunch of new podcasts, and I listened to 6 of them already, and they're really, really good. Unfortunately, the only one out of the 6 I didn't like was the Morgan Shepherd one, and I was a little I mean, it's good. It's a good listen, but it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Only for a reason. I'm a huge Morgan Shepherd fan, and I know a lot about his story, and they really didn't talk much about it. They talked more about him roller skating and talked about his pets and stuff like that. They didn't really get into the Morgan Shepherd history, and he has a great history in racing.
Wait,
you know?
You're not like a roller derby fan or anything?
I heard it before, and I don't care. He was into like raising flying squirrels and stuff like that. I just wasn't into that. There's more to his story than that. They just focused on the wrong stuff, I think. And I think the show and the questions went in the wrong direction with Morgan Shepherd. I think it could have been better. But a real good one that was on point and they did a real good job was Boris Said. They had a interview with Boris Said, and that was really, really good.
So what was it that Boris said?
Just everything. He's a lot like James Finch. He don't care. He just says how it is. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't care whose feelings he hurts and stuff like that. And he's retired now from racing, so he doesn't care. He'll tell you anything you want to know. He's very truthful, you know. And he comes from a lot of different forms of racing. You know, he raced the Trans Am Series, and he raced for Roush over there, and he raced NASCAR, and he raced for a lot of different teams in NASCAR. He's another one to throw it out. Oh, this guy paid me $25,000 a race. This guy paid me $50,000 a race. This team paid me to pull off so their guy could win. You know, like he was real honest. It was a real cool interview. Kyle Petty was on there. Kyle Petty was really good. Ray Evernham was on there. He talks a lot about Wall Stadium in that one, so you might want to check that one out. Terry Labonte was on there. Terry Labonte was really good too, believe it or not. He's usually pretty cut and dry, but he did a real good interview. He talked about like Earnhardt wrecking him at Bristol and stuff like that. And just so there's a bunch of new good ones with the Dinners with Racers podcast. If you guys want to check them out.
I did find a video here of Ken Schrader flipping TQ in Atlantic City.
In Atlantic City, sure it's on Indiana because I know he races them out in Indiana as well. Indoors.
Gamblers Classic in Atlantic City.
Okay. What year?
2008.
Yeah. 12 years ago.
Yes, but I just said that he did race there. I didn't say when.
And another thing my brother sent us, and it's all over Facebook and YouTube, is Citrus County Speedway. A 4-cylinder guy goes through the infield and he never even thinks about lifting. He just like floors it. And down in Florida, they build their racetracks a little weird. They put their lighting system in the infield. The poles are in the infield, and they shine out the track, where up here we put the lights around the perimeter racetrack and shine into the racetrack. And then what they do to protect the poles is they pile big mounds of dirt around them. You know what I'm saying? Well, this four-cylinder comes off turn 2, and someone turns him, and the guy never even thinks about lifting. He just floors it and jumps the dirt pile around the telephone pole.
Don't see how them Duke boys are going to get out of this one.
That's exactly what it looked like. It looked like the Duke boys. And someone said that was a brand new pace car that he flipped on top of. The guy literally flips over at the top of their brand new pace car that's sitting in the infield.
It landed like on the hood and part of the windshield.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild wreck. So
and that wasn't just any pace car. That was a Corvette, wasn't it?
It looked like a Corvette or a Camaro or something. It looked like a sports car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't like they got a Toyota Camry and put some lights on it.
Here or anything like that. You know, it was an expensive pace car, and a lot of times those pace cars are donated by like a local dealership. You know, so who knows what's going to happen there. Yeah, check that out. That was pretty crazy.
I saw a second angle of that from I guess the backstretch, and that was even.
Oh, really? I only seen the one.
It was clearer than the original one, and.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I'll see if I can find that and share it on the.
All right,
page.
Josh, do you have another thing? MST3K. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's my recommendation because it's. You might know it was a TV show that was on for quite a few years and was recently rebooted to Netflix, and now it's going to be going somewhere else, I think, where they watch really crappy old movies and make fun of them the whole time.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so it's been around. I mean, I think it started in the mid '80s, and.
Is that the one with the 3 robots watching it in the movie theater?
Yes, that's the show.
I have seen that on TV before, but I never stopped to watch to see what was going on. That was kind of weird.
That's Jason's favorite show back when we were kids, Scott.
I really watching old Gary Busey movies and stuff.
Yeah, so that show where they watched, you watch them watch the show.
Yeah.
And the commentary is always just hilarious. And I got to go. It was in Red Bank Friday evening. They had a live show, and there's a couple different ways that the show has gone, where some of the former cast members and stuff have done their own different things and have done touring shows. This was a live version of the show where the guys and the robots are there. And you watch some terrible. It was a great, terrible '80s sort of karate. Like if you combined Rocky and the Karate Kid and The Outsiders, that was this movie. It was terrible, and they were there, live making fun of the movie, and you're sitting in the theater with them, and it was very funny. I actually got to meet the creator of the show there was a meet and greet thing that Lisa had gotten me. So,
Cool.
Yeah, so I got a picture with him and the robots, and we got to see a great show. Bryce went along with us, and he was laughing the entire time. It was it was a lot of fun. So,
all right, so that's called MST3K Live.
Yes,
that's what the show's called.
It had a different name when it was on TV, didn't it?
Well, that's the anagram or acronym for it, rather.
Yeah.
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So it was just a neat thing that I got to do Friday night, and it was a fun experience, and my kid loved it. And
what movie were they watching when you were there?
No Retreat, No Surrender.
Never heard of it.
Would you go Count Basie?
Yes.
Just on a side note, kind of helped build that edition on Count Basie Theater because I haul equipment for Total Pipe. They did the plumbing there.
Okay.
And I haul equipment for Atlantic Sprinkler, and they did the sprinkler system there. So that building was partially built by me, Josh Matthews. So
that part wasn't open yet.
The new part's still not open yet?
No. That's still under construction. They have stuff advertising they're going to have more restrooms because here's
well, that was a big thing. They had to add bathrooms.
Yeah. They desperately need to add bathrooms. The seats are very tight, like you have to kind of sit with your hands folded or whatever. There's no real elbow room. But the bathrooms, they crammed 3 urinals in a spot that you should maybe fit 2. And so they had
the guy's shoes next to you.
they have the wall dividers, but wall dividers are kind of flimsy. So as I'm trying to go, I can feel the guy next to me moving, because his shoulder's into the divider, as is mine. So you can feel like it's too
So
tight.
if you have any type of stage fright, you're not peeing in that bathroom.
No, not at all. So yeah, they really need to, and they only have one set of bathrooms, one ladies' room, one men's room.
Right.
They-
Yeah, I
they
know.
don't-
I know that addition we were putting on the big things. It's going to have like a restaurant and a bar in it, and the big thing was bigger bathrooms.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge improvement. If they could tear out the seats and make them a little bit wider, I know they want the capacity, but it would be so much
Well,
more
not only
comfortable.
that, I don't even know if it's a capacity thing. That's a very old theater. Back in the day,
Yes,
they made stuff smaller like that for people. People were smaller back in the day.
they weren't fat like me.
Did you eat anything there? What's the food you review at the Count Basie Theater?
I had popcorn and a beer because I only wanted a soda, but I didn't see any soda. It was that or like a really small Gatorade at the bar, and I was like, I'll just have the beer with some popcorn and
Yeah, the concessions at that place, Scott, is basically a tub of ice with beer and Gatorade and popcorn and Snickers bars. That's like there's like
Yeah.
no.
I mean, that's another reason why they're putting this big addition on. It's supposed to be all updated and more fan friendly.
yeah, I think it'll be a good thing when it's completed. It wasn't done yet. I've been there. That was my third time there, I think, in total. Otherwise,
I was there twice. I saw the Ghost Hunters were there.
oh,
Meet
cool.
and greet with the Ghost Hunters, and we saw Frozen in there.
Hmm.
They had Frozen in there, like where they had like when they sang the songs, the words would come across the bottom, and all the little kids were all in there singing the songs.
Cool.
It was like a sing along type thing.
I like that. That's pretty neat. I got to see Train play there, and then I went to a like Laser Floyd or whatever it was.
The
You
one
saw
show,
Train the Band?
Yes, Train the band.
yeah,
They're the Drops of Jupiter people.
Yes.
That's a good song. I always like Train song. He
The
does real good Led Zeppelin covers too.
He did "Stay with Me" by was it the Rolling Stones? I think they covered that. Yeah, they are a good band. I
Yeah, they
recommend
are.
them. So,
the one band I
was the
didn't
crowd
see
for
there.
this movie review by robots thing.
I will. I'll have to send you a link.
Scott, you'd watch 3 seconds of it, and you.
No, but how was the crowd at Count Basie Theater for
Oh.
this?
I'd say more than 3/4 full.
Oh wow.
The neat thing for me was now I had done what was called a meet and greet with William Shatner a while back, but it was like 200 people or 200 to 300 people, let's say, and you got your photo with him as well, which was cool. But it was they rush you over, stand next to him, smile, and then they rush you out. Like you don't talk
Right.
to him. Yeah. Whereas this meet and greet was it was 20 of us or less, and and the creator of the show, who was one of the original stars, was standing 2 feet from me, and we could ask him questions and talk to him and everything. It was a lot more of an intimate setting. It was really cool, and you didn't feel rushed. And then you could go and take your pictures and stuff.
Josh,
afterwards.
whenever you talk about stuff you go to, I just picture the people there all looking like the people from the Big Bang Theory TV show.
Thanks. I wouldn't go quite that far, but okay, fine.
All right, guys, let's start wrapping this up. It's 20 after 9 already. What have
I
we
don't
learned
get,
tonight?
I don't get to brag
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
What's that, Tim?
I don't get to brag about any shows that I watch on TV.
Oh, did you have a list?
No, not really. But
Anything you want to mention?
the History Channel, the Project Blue Book is really good. You'd like that, Josh. You don't watch that?
I got to see if they have an app. I don't have cable.
It's like all the conspiracy theories about government cover-ups. They do an episode on it every Tuesday night. It's really good. And I'll get a list of my YouTube channels that I watch, and we'll go from there.
Maybe I didn't explain this segment quite the way I wanted to go. But
It-
I was kind of hoping we'd stick to like racing themed stuff. But if you guys want to talk about any
Well, it's
show,
not everybody in this world does nothing but listen to racing all day long like you do.
I just figured since we're a racing podcast,
Well, you basically covered them all. What are we supposed to watch?
all right,
Jerry,
that's where we'll mention anything. Then we'll mention
Joe
anything.
and Jerry's Mississippi broadcast, or what we're supposed to do if you just did all the good ones.
Well, there is another podcast I've been listening to, and Tim, I think you would like this podcast, but it's not that great. It's really not. It's Steve Wade and Rick Houston. Remember them from the Speedway scene, Tim? That old racing paper Speedway. It's called the Scene Vault. And what they do is they interview a lot of old time racers, but then they actually go back into the vault and they'll pull up like a newspaper from like 1988.
Oh, they read it all?
Like the headlines from it, and they'll talk about that day at the racetrack and stuff like that. But they had Jeff Bodine on one. That was pretty good. When they're actually talking to the guest, it's good. And then when the guest isn't on, I kind of zone out a little bit because they kind of lose me a little bit, and they just kind of brag about themselves a little bit. And but the Jeff Bodine was pretty good, and they had Buckshot Jones on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Buckshot Jones one was really good because a lot of people new to racing don't know this, but Buckshot Jones and Randy LaJoy had a hate for each other that was like nothing else. They used to wreck each other every single week, and they got bad where NASCAR had to step in, you know. And even to this day, when you see, like, I'll see Randy LaJoy at like Motorsports, and I'm like, I'll say like, Buckshot Jones rules, and he'll just like give me the finger. You know what I'm saying? It's funny, you know. Like, there'll be times. I think it was even at Motorsports, the show we were at, Josh, when he was signing autographs and he's sitting at the table. He like took like a piece of cardboard and wrote Randy LaJoy, president of the Buckshot Jones fan club, and had it sitting in front of him. Like he folded it up in front of him, you know. So yeah, like to this day, they still don't like each other, you know.
Wow.
And, Buckshot Jones came from a pretty wealthy family and in real estate, and that's what Buckshot's doing now. And he's making a ton of money in real estate. And it was funny in the interview, and he started talking about Randy LaJoy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, what's he like making seats out of aluminum or something for a living now?" And I'm selling $1 million lots of property. And so like they still to this day hate each other, you know.
Josh,
So,
Buckshot Jones had a camper with a neon sign on the side of it that said Buckshot Jones with his number on it.
yeah, and it also had like a cowboy on there.
Yeah, with the guns were flaring, they're blinking. The guns would blink.
Yeah, he would have guns shooting bullets and it would blink, you know. Like he was flashy. His family had a lot of money, and he did win a few races, but he wrecked a lot. He was kind of like a better John West Townley. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he was a little bit better than John West, you know.
Better John West Town. Can I use that for the title of this episode?
Yeah, and then as
Buckshot.
a matter of fact, if you listen to the James Finch one, what does that say, Tim? A Speedway scene?
Speedway scene report.
Yeah, I remember that. That's Speedway scene, though. This was Winston scene.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that's all.
Yeah, but you listen to all these podcasts, and if you listen to them enough, a lot of them are tied into each other. You know, when people are telling their stories, and the one James Finch story was he moved his racing operations to South Carolina, and he actually bought Buckshot Jones's race shop and team off Buckshot Jones's father when Buckshot Jones decided to get out of racing.
I had
So
no idea.
this is a cool little side story, but yeah, Buckshot Jones and Randy LaJoy still hate each other to today.
It's
Pretty
funny. Tim mentioned he was going to give us a list of his YouTube channels. I just want to know how many of them are about flat earthers.
No, I'm more in. I like a lot of the urban exploration stuff. And then I watched the Freedom Factory, of course. And
Tim, I looked at that Freedom Factory race because you were saying they're having an Enduro, and I was thinking about.
I sent the thing today. They named the 25 drivers.
Yeah, like it was like an invitation only type thing.
Well, yeah, it's all the people that are all the people that they're involved with. You know what I mean? Yeah. I besides them, I only follow one other of the guys on there. He's Demolition something or other. He's out of Texas.
Who shared that Cletus? The Hot Carl video. that I saw.
I don't know. Hot Carl's all over the internet, though. I might have. He's really big too, but he's.
But anyway, that Freedom Factory is having an enduro race, but it's closed to the public. Like a guy like me couldn't go down there and race it, and it's not even open. The grandstands aren't even open.
No, but it's on pay-per-view. They couldn't get the whatever the permits from the town in time to get the race on.
Right.
People in the grand. Yes.
Plus, it's their first event. They're easing into it. They got some fixing up to do down there and stuff like that. At least something's going on down there. You know what I'm saying?
Scott, don't you have a new car?
New car.
That you shared?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I did pick up a 1988 Lincoln Town Car today that only one owner, original owner. It's only got 65,000 miles on it.
Oh, dear God.
No one's even ever sat in the back seat of this car, Josh. It is spotless. The only downfall of it, all the brake lines were rotted out of it. That's why the guy got rid of it. So I might fix the brake lines and sell it. Or if I don't sell it, I might turn it into some type of enduro car, maybe for the Triple B race down at Greg Biffle's or something like that.
That
but it has it's the Lincoln Town Car with the 5.0 motor in it, the same as the Mustangs. So that was a pretty desirable car. I've used them before in enduro racing and demolition derbies. They work great. All right, guys. What have we learned? I actually had a pad and paper here and pen, and I wrote down my show stuff, and I even had a little section. What have we learned? I did not write one thing in it, so I have nothing.
Well, you were prepared at least.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that.
You got anything?
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I learned that Scott's the only one that's allowed to listen to other racing shows. We can't listen to them because we can't comment on them after they're over. No, I really didn't learn anything. I just everybody, thoughts go out to Danny Serrano's family and all them. Missed him. And one thing I do want to mention, Scott, is the Pattersons, the greenhouse. They're open. The greenhouse is open, and I guess they're looking for people to go there to buy flowers and stuff. Just mention them. Dude, what road is that?
That's 524 going out of Farmingdale towards Freehold.
Yeah. If you just get me that time of year, they're open for business, and go there. A good racing family, support people that support racing. Go there, get your
They have
flowers.
a car show there every year too. That's real good. But a lot of people bring their race cars there and vintage cars and stuff like that. So they've raced at Wallstain for many, many years, and they're a great family. One of the last few farmers in this area, so definitely support them.
They might even have a race car on the property. I don't know if they keep those cars there or not.
I think they do. I think they keep both of those cars right there in that barn.
But
All right,
besides
Josh,
that-
what have you learned?
Well, actually, speaking of Pattersons, I have to text Rick Patterson back because he texted me like a week ago, and I was busy, and I keep forgetting to actually message him back. So, Rick, I'm getting to you. Anyway, so today I learned that GreatRailing.com is based in New Jersey. I learned that Scott and Tim had broiled hot dogs when they were young. I learned that South Boston is in Virginia. I learned that South Boston is also the home of the bologna sandwich. I learned that they build racetracks weird in Florida, according to Scott. And I learned that Scott has to break in the backseat of his new Lincoln Town Car.
Josh, real quick, Google Hawaiian quail. I want to know why my mom called this hot dog a Hawaiian quail, where this name came from.
Oh, and that truck movie we talked about earlier, Maximum Overdrive, by the way.
Maximum Overdrive, yep.
All right, so what quail?
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
I actually think that's what our great grandmother called it, Scott. I don't think it goes any further than that.
You don't think that's the real name of it?
No, I think that's just what our great grandmother called it.
I liked it. You got to be careful though, because you could really choke on the bacon, because the bacon didn't get real crisp.
I'm getting a bird that almost looks like a pheasant.
So nothing to do with a hot dog. Put hot dog Hawaiian quail.
Uh,
I don't.
You just think that was a family name, Tim?
A riddle with legacy, yes.
Yeah.
Hawaiian quail hot dog. Let's see. All right, so all right. It's a Hawaiian style hot dog. Let me see here. This is calling it a puka dog. I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole here.
Try just put hot dog, cheese, and bacon. And see what comes up. Royal.
Hot dog, cheese, bacon.
So the secret to that is you have to use a really good hot dog. If you use like a cheap hot dog, they turn to mush. Yeah, it's nasty.
Greasy.
I'm just getting a buttload of recipes.
All right, Timmy, I'll have to ask Mom. I guess this was a fake name she thought of.
It was our great grandmother.
Yeah, I mean that was a big dinner at our house: Hawaiian quail, mashed potatoes, and beans. Josh, what are some of your family dinners?
Something called chicken divan. It's chicken, obviously, rice, like a heavy whipping cream, like it's a really savory sauce that goes in it, with some broccoli in there, and it's honestly delicious. And then there's like a something that I just call hot dogs and sauce, which is you basically bake some hot dogs in this sauce with a lot of it's ketchup and Worcestershire sauce and a couple other spices or whatever in there, and then you just serve it over rice. So it has a little bit of a bite to it, but it's not like a buffalo thing.
Sounds good. That sounds good on like a cold, dreary day. Something to warm you up.
Oh yeah, a lot of good comfort food.
So what do you call that? Chinese cowboy? Like you got rice and
I'll try to think of a stupid name for it for next episode.
Your family didn't call it anything? Like, what would you call it when it was for dinner? Like, my mom, what's for dinner? And like, what would she call it?
Hot dogs and sauce.
Yeah.
That's it.
Can you remember any other dinners when we were kids?
train wreck.
Yeah, that was your. I didn't
I
like
like
for train wreck. Tim liked
I
train.
like
Tim liked
train wreck.
quiche too. I couldn't do the quiche thing. He liked quiche.
I still like quiche.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Depends on how it's made, but I like quiche.
And it seemed like Tim always won when my mom asked what we wanted for dinner. It seems like she always made him what he wanted, not what I wanted.
I was more of a mama's boy. Scott was more of a daddy's boy.
And my dad liked westerns.
Scott wanted a Ram truck, so my dad went out and bought a Ram truck.
My dad liked Western omelets. That was a popular one, a dinner at our house that I didn't really care for. Tim liked the quiche. I didn't really care for. So my mom would make my dad Western omelets and my brother a quiche. And I would probably eat Chef Boyardee that night.
The only thing,
another family thing we had, we used to call spaghetti Grandma Riggleman style because my grandmother, she would just throw like meat sauce in with the spaghetti and mix it up, like not like pour it over top, like she would like cook it all together, you know?
Interesting.
That was pretty good. Tim, what was train wreck? That was like macaroni and cheese.
it
Like
was basically homemade hamburger helper back before there was hamburger helper.
Oh, okay.
It was elbow noodles, and then you would take like a pound of chopped meat and brown that up with onions and peppers and mushrooms and dump it in there with sauce in there.
And Josh, just so you know, government cheese is a real thing.
I know
government
that.
cheese was the best. You can make the best macaroni and cheese with that.
My mom actually had a slicer, and she would slice up everybody's government cheese, and we would. I mean, when that stuff would come out, we would have grilled cheese sandwiches, grilled government cheese sandwiches. My mom would make homemade macaroni cheese with the government.
Yeah, if I remember right, Mom and Dad somebody had a connection with somebody who worked at.
No, I just think everybody in our family was entitled to government cheese, and the deal was
they used to go to Fort Dix or something and get it, or
I thought it was
the Navy
Freehold.
base.
I think it was the Armory in Freehold they would go to and get it. But everybody in our family, aunts, uncles, cousins, they were all entitled to this government cheese. And my mom was smart. She was the only one that went out and bought a slicer, like an electric slicer. So everybody would bring their government cheese to my mom's house for her to slice it up. But my mom would take 25% of the cheese block. So we had government cheese. Gosh, there was literally our refrigerator would be filled with government cheese. And not only would we keep the government cheese itself, we would keep the box it came in, and that's what we would put our baseball cards in because our baseball cards fit perfect in the government cheese box.
Was that by design, I wonder?
If anybody didn't ever get government cheese and they were grown up rich like Josh and didn't have to eat government cheese, government cheese came in a block very similar to like Velveeta cheese comes in.
Cracker Barrel.
What's that?
Cracker Barrel cheese.
Is that what Cracker Barrel comes into?
Well,
like a big square box.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what government cheese came in. It was this brown, this cheese.
It said cheese on it.
Yeah, that's all it said. And the cheese wasn't the greatest. It was, if you ate a piece of it, it was hard and waxy. But when you melted it down, it was okay. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we used it for cooking.
Oh boy!
I just learned that it was hard and waxy.
Another thing my mom would make spam. Spam's
Wait,
expensive.
what color was it? Like, was it like just a yellow
Yellow.
American,
It was
or
yellow
was
American.
it? Okay.
It was yellow.
Yeah, it was yellow American. But my mom also bought Spam back, and Spam's kind of expensive now. If you notice this, Spam isn't really cheap anymore. But Spam used to be really, really cheap back in the day. So instead of ham dinners, we would have Spam dinners, and my mom would like still cook it like it was a real ham. Like she would bake it, put the little parsley things in it, and,
Oh, jeez.
the pineapple on it. But it was still Spam. It wasn't a ham, But we grew up with Spam.
Josh, my dad wouldn't. He would only eat like processed stuff. He wouldn't eat like a regular ham.
Yeah, he wouldn't eat steak or nothing like
Yeah,
that.
he wouldn't eat steak or like if he couldn't chew it or cut it with his fork, he didn't want to eat it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, did you like a meatloaf then? Because then you have
Yeah,
processed meat.
My mom makes awesome meatloaf with the mozzarella cheese in the middle of it. The only thing he would eat that he had to eat, he liked pork chops. I didn't like pork chops either. That was another pork chops and applesauce was a dinner at my house I never really cared for either.
Just like the Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch ate that.
Yeah, and my mom, she made it good. She would bread it and fry it in a pan. It was good. I don't like pork chops that much. My dad liked pork chops. I know we did breakfast for dinner a lot. Pancakes and bacon for dinner.
There's never anything wrong with that, honestly.
Still to this day, even when Thomas was a kid, we would do breakfast for dinner. I think breakfast food is the best food of the day. But everybody's so busy in the morning to sit down and actually have a nice breakfast. We would make it for dinner,
Yeah, I'm too busy trying to shove like a pork roll, egg, and cheese down my throat while I'm
my
driving
brother,
up the parkway.
Pancakes and bacon, or my dad also liked sausage patties, so we always had sausage patties a lot instead of links. So pancakes and sausage was a big dinner at our house.
With a little bit of syrup on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I was just getting to. I kind of grossed out. Me and my brother would put syrup on ours. My dad would put ketchup on his pancakes.
Well, I was putting syrup on the sausage patty because that's good.
Yeah,
to
so
me.
what I would put butter and syrup on my whole plate with the pancakes and the sausage, where my dad would put ketchup on his sausage and on his pancakes. To the point where he would rub it over the whole pancake with a butter knife. You know what I'm saying?
I'll accept the ketchup on the sausage patty, but I can't accept it on the.
And it started because he would put ketchup on his sausage, and then because his sausage was next to his pancake, someone would get on his pancake, and he kind of liked it, so then he started putting ketchup on his pancakes too.
And
I've never seen another human in my life put.
Aunt Kathy does.
Does she?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make one suggestion for you guys and for anyone listening, if they're still here at this point. Try putting peanut butter on a burger. It is delicious.
I've seen it in the restaurants before.
It's actually really good.
Really?
Yes.
Never even thought about that. I've seen people put peanut butter and jelly in oatmeal, to give it flavor.
Okay. Yeah. I could see that working.
Josh, are you a ketchup on your hot dog kind of guy or no?
Occasionally, not normal. I usually stick with the spicy brown mustard.
I always notice that ketchup, a lot of younger people put ketchup on hot dogs, and then as they get older, they switch to mustard. Like I used to put ketchup on my hot dogs, and now I put mustard on it.
If I have the cocktail wieners or whatever, then I occasionally, just to change it up, I might dip a little bit in ketchup.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right, 9:37.
Hey, hold on. Josh, you sent us a thing about it was on your Facebook page, I think. Something about a little deli restaurant down by your house was trying to change something over. What were they trying to do?
Oh, there was just the place I go to, well, usually every day, the Lunchbox on 9. They make some great sandwiches, and you get a lot of sandwich for your money. I mean, they stuff these sandwiches full. But they're coming up on 2 years now, and it was a cool little.
I didn't get to read it yet, but I plan on it.
Yeah, it's just it's a good place, great food, Lunchbox on 9. And honestly, they'll make anything. It's like they have their sandwich. Like, I'll have a number 14. Okay, that's fine. But if you want something different or you want something special, they'll make that too.
Okay.
Anything you want. I actually enjoy it was from the old grease trucks up at Rutgers. They called it a Fat Beach. and it's a cheesesteak with with chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, and French fries, and some ketchup in there. It is. It's not healthy at all, but it is delicious.
One thing about I said I didn't like that Morgan Shepherd podcast with Dinner Racers, but the thing with Dinner Racers, they actually do meet them at a restaurant and they do eat dinner while they're doing the podcast, which gets a little annoying because they are eating food and you can hear the waitress asking other people for orders. But they ate at a restaurant that Morgan Shepherd goes to every day, and when the waitress came to take his order, he said, "Give me the Morgan Shepherd burger." So there was a Morgan Shepherd burger, and he didn't list what was on it, and it was pretty. I can't remember what it was, but I would never order. It was like a cheeseburger with like something like liverwurst on it or roast beef or it didn't sound very good. But he has his own sandwich at this restaurant, and it seems like Josh like goes to this place every day, and they're willing to make anything he wants. It seems like if he had his own desired sandwich, he can get something named after him there. You know,
I'm not a gourmet cheeseburger kind of guy. I'm just like cheeseburgers is a burger with cheese on it. And
yeah, you just like it the way it is. He used to be a big California burger guy when I was a kid.
Yeah, but that's not even as bizarre as what anymore. You can get all kinds of Josh said peanut butter and jelly, and you get all kinds of crap on a cheeseburger now.
Well,
Josh, next time you go in the lunchbox, see if they have like a local guy's sandwich or something. Like some guy orders something weird there every day, you know.
Honestly, it would probably be me.
What's that?
It'd probably be from me because.
What do you order when you go in there?
Well, actually, one of the girls that works there got me into this. It's a pork roll, egg, and cheese with a hash brown on it, on rye, toasted rye.
Okay. What I was thinking about, you know what? Now you mentioned that it was part of Morgan Shepherd's burger. It wasn't. He doesn't like rolls. It was bun. It was on rye bread.
Okay. Yeah. Rye bread's good. And then they have a chipotle mayo sauce that you can either put on it or dip it in a little bit. So it just got a little bit of bite to it, but it complements the sandwich really well. So that's kind of it's the girl Samantha that works there. I just named it after her, I guess. But otherwise, yeah. I don't know. It's good.
I'm looking up see if Morgan Shepherd's burgers on Google here.
I saw on Facebook earlier today. Tom Baori, beef.
Yeah, I remember Tom. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was posting that he ran into somebody who's lived in Jersey like all their life and didn't know what a Jersey burger was. It's like you put pork roll on like a freaking cheeseburger.
I tell you what, though, I've also heard that called the garbage can burger too.
Where did you hear that? I'm just curious.
It's called the garbage can at Mulligan's.
Yeah, Mulligan's. It's called the garbage can burger.
Okay, but I mean,
a lot of places, it may not be called the Jersey Burger. I thought where it's like the Jersey Devil, it would be, you know.
But I mean, if you see something that says Jersey Burger somewhere, you assume that it's going to have pork roll on it, right?
Yeah.
That's just like a default.
Speaking of which, did you see on the Channel 12 news the other day that there's a place, and I never knew about it, but we're going to go there soon. It's in Allentown. Okay. Is that Allentown, New Jersey?
All right.
It's called the Pork Roll Store. It turned 100 years old at the beginning of the month. And their claim to fame is that they make their own family recipe pork roll there. It's not, you know how like a hot dog or pork roll is supposed to be like, you know, like lips and buttholes and everything else? You know, it's not supposed to be, you know, quality meat cuts.
I think I just heard Eric Brennan turning off the podcast.
But it's just supposed to be made out of like nothing but top shelf cuts of the meat.
Okay.
And they're 100 years old. So the only catch is that they're only open Thursday through Sunday from 10 to 6.
Do they sell, like, do they wholesale it to any place? Or
by the pictures that I saw on Facebook, Google, Facebook, or whatever you want to call it, any of them, Google or Facebook, they do have it packaged where, yes, I think they do ship all over.
Okay, so I mean, so you could buy your own, or you can go to a place that
You
gets
can go,
it from
they
there.
can go right there and buy it right there, either
Okay.
there or mail order.
All right,
But
so
that's not far from here.
yeah,
I don't think that's even a half hour from like where Wall Stadium is. So
it might be worth a try. Just literally to try a slice of it, even.
yeah, supposedly they make their own homemade pork roll, sausage, kielbasa, and then like beef. Like you make hamburgers out of.
Okay. Scott's still looking up something. It looks like.
I was trying to find a Morgan Shepherd sandwich, and it's not coming up anywhere. All right, guys. That wraps up RPM Podcast, episode 166. Thanks for joining us.
Now I'm hungry.
Me too. I guess we'll be back next week.
We'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks for listening.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Good night, guys.